Part 90. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 925. Fantasy Rubik's Cube, only. Holder, please be aware that this is an item that even the gods will be greedy for. Active Skill 1, Strengthening of all things. Burn a lot of script points to strengthen items. The script points for each strengthening will be twice that of the previous level. Cooling time, none. Su Tong came to the dream Rubik's Cube in front of him and slowly sent the pure Yang sword into the Rubik's Cube. Ding. Do you want to spend 5,000 script points to strengthen this item to level 1? Faced with the enhanced price offered by the Fantasy Rubik's Cube, Su Tong was not surprised. After his sister identified the entry for the Fantasy Rubik's Cube, he tried it himself, but he was too poor at the time. From Chapter 16 of Volume 11. The Level 1 enhancement fee of 5,000 script points is really too high. Calculated based on several multiplication methods, strengthening to level 6 requires 315,000 script points. For me, who had spent 100,000 yuan in appraisal fees and almost wiped out my family fortune, it was an astronomical figure that was out of reach. But now, 310,000 script points are not a problem for me at all. Not only do I want to strengthen it to level 6, but I also want to try to strengthen it to level 9. The involution starts with me. Su Tong said and directly chose to confirm. Pure Yang sword add 1. Pure Yang sword add 2. Pure Yang sword add 3. The script points in Su Tong's props book were evaporating like crazy. If there weren't enough script points in the props book, Su Tong also took out all the script points from the team warehouse. This money was originally intended to be used by Su Tong to purchase property when his authority was upgraded to LV4. However, now that the money has been saved, it was directly withdrawn by Su Tong and used to strengthen the pure Yang sword. Soon, when the pure Yang sword was strengthened to level 6, the blade had become like glass, with a soft divine glow covering the sword. 315,000 script points were evaporated. This amount was more than the money Su Tong had won from gambling in the casino before. But now is just the beginning, and the real money will be spent next. Su Tong has now activated the blessing of the Immortal of Fortune, and his luck has begun to improve strongly. Then confirm the reinforcement again. Pure Yang sword add 7 strengthening successfully. This time alone, the cost of strengthening alone has reached an astonishing 320,000 script points, which is higher than the total cost of strengthening to level 6. If the previous expenses are included, he has already burned 630,000 script points. Ding. Do you want to spend 640,000 script points to enhance this item to level 8? Continue to strengthen. Su Tong's eyes were fixed on the pure Yang sword in the Rubik's Cube. Ding. Do you want to spend 1.28 million script points to enhance this item to level 9? There is a 30% chance that the enhancement will fail. Once the enhancement fails, the item will be at risk of shattering. Su Tong took a look at his luck and saw that his luck was rising. There seemed to be a faint ray of sunshine, and he felt confident in his heart. Confirm. Strengthening successful, pure Yang sword add 9. Seeing the success message, Su Tong couldn't help but scream. A total of 2.52 million script points. Even if Su Tong is now sitting in Lo Jinfang, he will inevitably feel a feeling of panic. You must know that such a large amount of money will take at least 2 quarters to earn in those industries in the core area, but there are still costs. If the costs are deducted, it is not possible to earn such a large amount of money. An easy thing. Moreover, the 33% failure probability is a huge risk for Su Tong. Once the pure Yang sword is broken, it will definitely be a dimensionality reducing blow to his own strength. Fortunately, I was lucky, and I finally completed the strengthening without any danger. Su Tong could not wait to extract the pure Yang sword from the dream Rubik's Cube. I saw only the sword body, which was silvery white and as bright as a galaxy. Star patterns were arranged on the sword body. If you look closely, there seemed to be countless black holes flowing out. This is a very positive sign. To strengthen further, the extreme yang should produce yin and yang should be combined. By then, this sword may really become an immortal artifact. But if the time comes to further strengthen it, the script points required will be even more terrifying. Not only the script score, but also the probability and risk of reinforcement failure will also increase crazily. Without absolute certainty, Su Tong did not dare to strengthen it rashly. But even so, the Chunyang sword at this moment has been completely transformed, and can match his current strength. Holding the blade of the pure Yang sword, Su Tong suddenly felt the pure Yang energy boiling in his body, and a feeling of blood connection arose in his heart. What was even more terrifying was that the divine brilliance on his sword actually interacted with his physical body. Resonating, Su Tong's huge aura surged for a moment, and his whole state suddenly reached the peak in history. The strength has improved by at least 2 levels compared to before. Such a big movement alerted Ame, who was adjusting the abacus to settle accounts, and Amoda, who was hiding in the corner fishing for fish. The two of them hurried to the basement, but when they reached the basement, the hot pure Yang aura made them stop again. If they went forward, they would be repelled by this pure Yang aura. Before they knew exactly what Su Tong was doing, the two of them did not dare to walk forward rashly. Su Tong fiddled with it for a few times and couldn't wait to put the Chunyang sword into the prop book, wanting to see how amazing the changes in the Chunyang sword were at this moment. When the Chunyang sword fell into the props book, Su Tong took a closer look and couldn't help but gasp. Pure Yang sword add 9, soulbound item, cannot be traded, cannot be discarded. Once the world is enlightened, there will be no swordsman in the world. Restrain all dark creatures and deal critical damage to ghosts and ghosts. Passive skill 1, Pure Yang sword code. The user can use the power of the sword soul to understand the Chunyang sword code. Those who have learned the Pure Yang sword canon will directly obtain the effect of the 6th level Pure Yang sword canon. If it exceeds the 6th level, an additional 4 levels of skill will be enhanced. Passive skill 2, Swordsmanship like the sun. All sword skills are increased by 3 levels. Passive skill 3, Extreme Yang fire. The blade has its own pure Yang fire. The more Yang energy the user has, the more powerful the effect will be. Special skills, one sword can determine the world. After activation, a large amount of pure Yang Qi will be consumed. With its own pure Yang Qi, it will attract the power of heaven and earth, and the sword will emerge from the universe. This skill needs to be combined with the pure Yang sword code and the right time and place to exert its maximum power. The user cannot use it if he does not have pure Yang Qi. Cooling time, 10 days. The power of the Holy Sword. The power of the sacred weapon Saint Dia's spear and divine sword has been strengthened, and it has a serious injury effect on the gods. When the gods are injured by the sword energy, a sacred mark will be left. Once the mark reaches the 10th level, it will cause an irreversible mental critical attack on the gods. Cooling time, 7 minutes. Looking at the new entry of Chunyang sword, Su Tong instantly felt that his more than 2 million script points were worth it. No, it should be earned through blood. Originally, the pure Yang sword could only upgrade 1 level of its own pure Yang sword canon. With the passive effect, the sword skill was increased by 1 level. With the addition of its own Rebel series fetters, all skills were at 1. Only then did the effect of his pure Yang sword canon reach the 12th level. But now, that's really a shot in the arm, a heifer standing on its head. Just the addition of the pure Yang sword brought his pure Yang sword code to the 16th level, coupled with the fetters of the title of the retrograde series. His pure Yang sword code was abruptly upgraded to the 17th level of effect. In addition, the ability of the artifact Saint Dia's spear divine sword has also achieved a huge breakthrough. Originally, the ability brought by the artifact Saint Dia's Spear Divine Sword was the Sacred Sealing technique, which only had an effect on dark creatures. But now that it has been upgraded to the power of the Holy Sword, it not only enhances the lethality of the Pure Yang Sword against gods, but also adds special spiritual critical damage. If, in the last script world, I had raised the Pure Yang Sword to add 9 level, then when I entered the cave world for the first time, I would not have been so passive. With the power of the Pure Yang Sword, I could directly killing the black and white evil gods on the spot would prevent them from plotting against him and reducing himself to the level of devastation. But this is purely an afterthought. It's different now. With the add 9 Pure Yang Sword, in the next script world, even when facing gods, without using the 9 Dragon Cauldron, I will still be confident and be tough. Thinking of this, Su Tong suddenly wanted to try and see if he could strengthen the 9 Immortals Cauldron. With the mentality of giving it a try, Su Tong summoned the 9 Immortals Cauldron and tried to throw it into the fantasy Rubik's Cube. As a result, after seeing the cost of level 1 enhancement, Su Tong became a muggle. The Pure Yang Sword was already expensive enough, but unexpectedly, the cost of strengthening the 9 Immortals Cauldron once again made Su Tong realize the original sin of poverty. This thing is really a money-burning hole. Let's wait a little longer, at least until Lo Jinfang has completely transformed into a profitable period after 4 quarters of operation. Just the level 1 enhancement cost made Su Tong retreat. If it were to be enhanced to add 9, it would probably not be enough for him to sell the iron. Put away the 9 Immortals Cauldron. At this time, Gao Zhou and the others also discovered that the funds originally sealed in the team's warehouse were gone, so they asked Su Tong. Su Tong didn't waste any time and sent the strengthening effect of Pure Yang Sword directly to the team channel. Suddenly Gao Zhou and others fell silent. 2 minutes later, the screams of Gao Zhou and the others were heard, and they were all clamoring to strengthen the things on their hands. Too perverted. Boss, you are not interesting enough. You never said that the Rubik's Cube can be strengthened. I don't care, I have to strengthen it. This is just like cheating. My general, Broken Blade, is already hungry and thirsty. Got it? Boss, I want to try my Tianshuang Wu Go too. Just in time, my 2 daggers can also be strengthened. The 3 of them screamed and rushed back. Faced with the excitement of the 3 people, Su Tong could only pour cold water on them inappropriately. When he reported the cost of Chun Yang Sword to everyone, the 3 of them were stunned. There are more than 2 million script points. The amount of money burned is really confusing. I have used all the money in the team warehouse, and I have other uses for the remaining hundreds of thousands of script points. You can decide how much script points you have left, otherwise you will have to wait until the end of this quarter. It won't take more than a few days. Although Lo Jinfang is receiving money every day, they cannot withdraw the money in Lo Jinfang's account at will. They need to wait until the end of the quarter for settlement and division of the spoils. Although this approach may sound a bit unpleasant, if you want to go a long way, this is a must-have rule. Otherwise, if you pay a sum of money today and a sum of money tomorrow, the taste will slowly change. Once the team reaches this point, it is not far from being doomed. The 3 of them heard the same thing, so they simply waited. After all, they knew how much it cost to strengthen, but this did not prevent them from rushing back, at least to settle the accounts in advance for the guys in their hands. Can't run away. Actually, as a major shareholder and industry holder, if necessary, I can give you the funds to spend separately in the ledger. Aimei and Ameta walked down the stairs. After asking what Su Tong had just done, Aimei supported Su Tong to continue to strengthen. Wait a little longer. If I strengthen it further, I feel like I won't be able to control this sword. Besides, the probability of failure is too high. Su Tong doesn't want to continue to strengthen, but when it reaches the 9th level, the probability of failure has reached an astonishing 33%. If it goes up, the risk will be greater, and his luck may not be able to suppress it. When May heard what Su Tong said, she couldn't help but said thoughtfully, "Well, I have a way." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 926. May didn't say anything about how to increase the probability of success in strengthening, she just asked Su Tong to wait. Fortunately, Su Tong himself is not in a hurry. The Pure Yang Sword Ad9's overall blessing to him is already at its peak. Further up, unless you break through to the fairyland, you really can't control it. But breaking through to the Earth Immortal is not easy. Entering the Tao is true, becoming a celestial being, killing an earthly immortal, and ascending to the Tao. These four thresholds are each higher than the last. The level of cutting one's own Dao depends on swallowing pills and forcibly improving. As for combining the Dao, there is a long way to go, and it cannot be achieved overnight. Just thinking about it, it feels like there is a long way to go. Soon, Gao Zhou and the others also rushed back, and one by one they began to study and tinker around the dream Rubik's Cube. Su Tong never said that this thing could strengthen items before. They thought it could only strengthen pills. Now when they saw Su Tong's Pure Yang Sword strengthened to Ad9, their eyes turned red. Su Tong didn't care about them, but just told them that if they really wanted to strengthen their skills and the scripts they had didn't have enough points, they might as well sell some of those 9-ox rhino elephant pills. 9-ox rhinoceros pill is a product created by Mr. Zhang, who spent 8 million script points to create the film. If you really follow the contract process, let alone the cost, you may not be able to make even a small change back. So what Su Tong did was to queue up and limit sales every day. Except for a few lucky people, the people waiting in line could not actually buy the elixirs at all. Most of the elixirs were purchased directly by him at the contract price. Then he changed hands and sold the script at an increased price of tens of thousands of points. After all, under these conditions, if you don't become a scalper, you will really lose your blood. So after calculation, at least 3/4 of the 8 million business was Su Tong's profit. With Su Tong's instruction, more and more 9-ox rhino elephant pills were sold at increased prices in the next few days. As a result, everyone cursed Daman, one of the 6 regiments, and the scalpers under him for being unscrupulous and ugly. The business of the pharmacy under Daman also plummeted. This incident really made the scalpers stamp their feet in anger, and they were really taking the blame. But there's nothing they can do about it. Who made their scalper group's reputation so bad? It's hard for them not to bear the blame. The business of Lo Jinfang is also getting better and better. At least a large amount of reconstruction pill is purchased every day, which can be exchanged for a large amount of script points. Su Tong and others took advantage of this time to concentrate on strengthening and improve their strength as quickly as possible. Of course, what's more, a group of people gathered together to study the content of the next script world. According to the master, they will re-enter the script world, but the content they experience will deviate from the script to a certain extent. The most important thing is that the scripts they have are actually incomplete. The dynasty background is hidden in it. Players' roots from the previous round were given script analysis for them. 5 low-level officers and soldiers hold heavy treasures in their hands. They have to face the pursuit of all forces along the way, and they also have to face the dark hands in the court. The last team that participated in this script chose to disguise themselves as common people along the way and avoided several larger battlefields, but they were still chased by Jianghu sects and jumped up and down. In the end, he managed to escape back to the city and managed to gain a foothold by killing the enemy generals. Then he was suppressed by the Black Hands in the court and was forced to participate in several battles, resulting in extremely heavy losses. Everyone sat at the table and frowned while looking at the script in front of them. "The starting point is too low," Chang Wuhan spoke first. "That's not true, our starting point in the last script world was not very high." Gu Zibai looked a little indifferent to this. In the end, Chang Wahan just rolled his eyes at him. The difficulty of the last script world was not very high, and due to the era at that time, we did not have hierarchical enemies. This time the script world is ancient, and it seems that it should be turbulent. In that era, there were constant wars, serious class consolidation, and a low starting point, which meant that we had to run for our lives, and the difficulty was not ordinary. I forgot, before you joined the team, you were still a black boxer. Gao Zhou snickered from the side, causing Gu Zibai's face to turn red and white. While everyone was discussing, Aimei pushed open the door, motioned for Su Tong to come out, and then whispered, "The people from the Spear God Regiment are here." Old man Zhang. Well, it seems that he brought some other people with him. Hearing what Aimei said, Su Tong probably guessed the purpose of old man Zhang's visit, so he nodded and followed Aimei downstairs. "Mr. Zhang. You are finally here. Why, do you want to pay for the elixir?" As soon as he got downstairs, Su Tong's face changed and he greeted him enthusiastically. After all, this is the big customer of their Lo Jinfang. Su Tong has a good impression of Mr. Zhang. After all, whether it is the Enlightenment Pill or the 9-ox Rhinoceros Pill, Mr. Zhang, an angel investor, has spent a lot of money on himself. In fact, although Mr. Zhang couldn't see Su Tong's true face, just hearing his voice made him feel sick. The Enlightenment Pill is 4 million, plus the next 8 million. Tens of millions of points for the script were given to this guy almost in vain. It would be a fool to say that Mr. Zhang didn't hate him in his heart. But the return of hatred to hatred did not affect Mr. Zhang's regard for Lo Jinfang. The Pharmaceutical Guild was successfully established this time, thanks to Su Tong's Lo Jinfang. Otherwise, even if he raises 200 million in funds, he will not be able to achieve his goal at all. Compared with it, the 8 million script points spent on Lo Jinfang are nothing. It can only be said that in the face of interests, no one is an eternal enemy, and no one is an eternal friend. Therefore, facing Su Tong's warm greeting, Mr. Zhang could only respond with a smile. "Don't be in a hurry about the elixir. Just 3 things to do today." Mr. Zhang sat down with a smile, took a sip of the tea brought to the table by his sister, and frowned slightly. It was obvious that he was not used to the taste of tea. "Oh, those 3 things." Su Tong didn't talk in circles and asked after sitting down. "Haha, it's all good things that work together to benefit both sides. I've seen the reconstruction pill sample you submitted. The cost of strengthening this thing is not high, right?" Old man Zhang didn't elaborate on what it was, but changed the subject to talk about the reconstruction pill. "It's really not high. The cost plus the pills add up to 100 script points." Su Tong was very honest with Mr. Zhang and directly revealed the cost of the reconstruction pill without hiding anything. Hearing this number, several people behind old man Zhang made a sound of surprise. Su Tong picked up the teacup and glanced at the 2 people behind old man Zhang. These 2 people were obviously players of the Gunslings group, otherwise they would not be hidden by the black mist disguise. Although Mr. Zhang admired Su Tong's frankness, when he heard such a low-cost price, he still couldn't help but cursed in his heart, "Profiteer." However, while cursing, he inevitably cast a look of admiration at the boss of Lo Jinfang in front of him. From the Enlightenment Pill to the Recreation Pill, it is hard to overstate that every item of this kid's business is almost a huge profit. I am afraid that it was because of the Enlightenment Pill last time that this kid was able to accumulate capital so quickly to open Lo Jinfang here. In fact, Mr. Zhang's guess cannot be wrong, but if there is no dream key, Mr. Zhang is almost right. At least Su Tong had this idea before he got the dream key, otherwise he would not have deposited the money into the team. Storehouse. Sure enough, it's pretty much what I thought. No wonder those people's application for arbitration against Lo Jinfang was ineffective. After Mr. Zhang finished speaking, he continued, "Your Lo Jinfang will not make money from elixirs in the future. Realizing that Mr. Zhang was testing him, Su Tong immediately became alert and pretended to be confused. How could Mr. Zhang say this? If I don't rely on this to make a living, what else will I eat? A small business like mine can only rely on, strengthen some junk medicine to make a living. Until now, Su Tong did not want the information that the magic cube could strengthen other items to be exposed, at least not yet. He would not consider further opening the service of strengthening items until the overall strength of their team reached the level of self-protection. I'm afraid it's not just that. Mr. Zhang stared at Su Tong with squinted eyes and said meaningfully, the name Lo Jinfang is good. Lejun's Bagua furnace can make alchemy and treasures. Only those who are proficient in everything deserve this name. Su Tong's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, the gunslingers can become bigger and stronger, and their subordinates are by no means mediocre. The properties of the fantasy Rubik's Cube were revealed so quickly. This is the last thing Su Tong wants to see. At this time, Mr. Zhang suddenly changed his voice and stopped worrying about this matter. Instead, he took out a purchase contract. The first thing I did when I came here was to purchase all the reconstruction pills from Lo Jinfang. When he said this, Mr. Zhang deliberately paused and added, this time it's all those that have been strengthened. I want as many as I want. Su Tong was a little confused now. I don't know if my reconstruction pill has touched Mr. Zhang's pain point again, causing him to go on a shopping spree like this. Hey, I know what you are thinking. The pharmaceutical industry union has been established. The turmoil during the exhibition needs to be calmed down. We purchase Zizao Dan at the original price and sell it at a price that is 60% over the original price. After the sale, we will distribute it to your 30% profit. The price will be much higher than if you sell it alone. I have to say that this is indeed a win-win cooperation. Once the trade union has verified its authority, the price war among major pharmacies will end, and the turmoil over Zayadan will subside, but Su Tong can still make a lot of money. But Su Tong did not nod in agreement, but asked, what about the second thing? Our leader is willing to pay you 200 million to obtain the exclusive right to strengthen the Gunslings group. You will still earn the money for strengthening. It only takes 4 quarters before the exclusive right to strengthen ends. At that time, anyone can strengthen it. Mr. Zhang took out the second contract and put it on the table. On top of this contract, there was a 200 million script bonus. He had always used money to throw money at others, but Su Tong was being thrown at others with money today. With a script score of 200 million, Su Tong was a little dazzled for a while, even though he knew that the future of Lo Jinfang was limitless. Besides, this money is not included in the enhancement fee. The spear gods will definitely be strengthened on a large scale in the future, and the amount of money he will earn will be even greater. In an instant, Su Tong began to think about how he would wear a Ad9 suit in the future, and his pants would be all shiny with gold. Just a moment later, Su Tong still maintained his rationality and immediately continued to act stupid. If the Spear God group wants to strengthen the potion, our Lo Jinfang will naturally welcome it. After all, this is the strength of our Lo Jinfang. Seeing that Su Tong was still so stubborn at this point, Mr. Zhang couldn't help but secretly admire him. These 200 million scripts were sent to him in vain. It's really hard to find people who are not dizzy now. So I took out the third contract and put it on the table. In the core area, there is a large open space, which is where our Gunsling group and the 10% share of the refining factory are, plus the 10% share of Mochizuki Epiphyllum and the 10% share of Sangxian Pharmaceutical shares, in exchange for 10% of your Lo Jinfang shares, 30 for 10, little brother. These are enough to show the sincerity of our Gunsling group. Earn it, it's just blood money. If this contract is taken out, it will make other teams in the 6th Regiment jealous. The Spear God Regiment occupies too many resources. Although the 6 regiments are neck and neck in name, the real gap is actually extremely huge. These 3 industries bring huge benefits every quarter. Especially after the establishment of the pharmaceutical trade union, the pricing power was in the hands of Zhang Lao. For the industry of Sangxian pharmacy, the income may not be less than that of Lo Jinfang. However, when Su Tong looked at the third contract, his mood suddenly became bad. The spear gods did this because they obviously wanted to get in. This behavior is disgusting. It's like a game company that has just developed a AAA masterpiece. It immediately starts poaching people with its own traffic and capital. Seeing that the effect is not good, they simply start buying your shares. 10% of the shares is not much, and it will not even affect the operation of Lo Jinfang. After all, he holds the majority of the shares, and the other party has no ability to restrict all his actions. But with this kick inserted, Lo Jinfang is like taking off his underwear for others to see clearly. By then, everything in Lo Jinfang will be in plain sight. Thinking of this, Su Tong's face gradually turned evil. He closed his eyes, his heart beating, and his thoughts gradually began to clear up. Buying the elixir may seem like a profit, but in fact it is a loss of blood. If the elixir is sold to them and they sell it at a high price, the reputation of Lo Jinfang will drop instantly. The so-called exclusivity is actually a cover to test oneself. The 200 million script points is a fist that hits one's face, paving the way for the third thing. After all, the money is thrown in the face, and many people will subconsciously let down their guard. It's such a bold move that most people can't resist. After all, no matter how you look at it, this is giving you money. But once you agree, you will be tied to the other party's will. If you want to get off, the price you have to pay will be high. Thinking of this, Su Tong took a deep breath, suppressed the evil fire in his heart, and said to Mr. Zhang with a smile, "Mr. Zhang, I know that Zhenkintu is full of sincerity, but there is another major shareholder of Lo Jinfang. I need to report these three matters to the major shareholders before I can give an explanation." Su Tong's refusal made Mr. Zhang feel a little troubled. $200 million in cash was thrown in front of me. Is this kid really not tempted at all? Of course, I also know that it is difficult for Mr. Zhang to make it. Let's do it this way. Starting today, Zizao Dan will be on sale in limited quantities, but I am willing to give you a 20% discount on the Zizao Dan purchased by your group. As he spoke, Su Tong glanced at Aimee, who immediately understood and took out the account book. I still have 4,000 reconstruction pills in the warehouse. If you want them all, I will pack them for you right away. Seeing Su Tong and Aimee start singing harmoniously, Mr. Zhang knew that today's trip would be in vain. But he is not an ordinary person. Seeing that there is nothing he can do, he simply goes with the flow and accepts the 4,000 reconstruction pills. After Aimee calculated the payment, she put together the sales gold of 9 ox rhino elephant pill and flipped the abacus a few times. "Sir, I don't need any change. Let's go for a 20% discount on the wholesale price, 260%. 150,000 script points is enough." Well, after a trip, I had no idea, but I was charged 2.65 million script points. Old man Zhang had to sigh in his heart that the price of this sugar-coated bullet was a bit too expensive. After paying the money and taking the elixir, Old man Zhang urged Su Tong to ask the major shareholders for their opinions as soon as possible, and then left Lo Jinfang with them. Only after the old man Zhang left, Aimee praised Su Tong with a smile. "I thought you would be blinded by that old fox's money, but I didn't expect that your boss is really smart. I was afraid you agreed in a daze." "Humph, that old guy is just bullying me for not seeing big money now." Su Tong curled his lips. "When I slowly open up the service market for power-up props, 200 million? 1 billion, I don't care." After saying that, Su Tong rolled his eyes and glared at his sister. "Okay, big sister, you can see that this old guy set a trap for me and you didn't even remind me, or I'll punish you as a doorman. Where is this? There will be more sugar-coated bombs in the future, and there will always be times when I am not around. Today I will give you a little memory, otherwise I am really afraid that your tail will be raised to the sky. May replied unceremoniously. The two complained to each other for a while, and Su Tong's face gradually became serious. The gunslingers have started to focus on me, and several other teams will do the same sooner or later. It seems that our progress will be accelerated. After saying that, Su Tong returned to the room and continued to study script strategies with Gao Zhou and others. On the other side, Old Man Zhang and 3 others were walking on the street. I'm old, and the means I have are almost out of date with the times. No wonder they don't agree. In the end, we are still stingy. Mr. Zhang seemed to be talking to himself. The 2 people beside him let out a burst of hearty laughter. Ha ha ha, I'm just saying, if you drop 200 million, I'm afraid you won't be able to open the door. You are still afraid of alerting the enemy, but if it were me, I would just drop 1 billion. Guaranteed to fool him. 1 billion, my little genius, do you plan to make the entire gunslingers eat dirt in the next few quarters? The man on the other side whispered. The guy who was nicknamed a genius by the man heard this and stuck out his tongue. Oh, I forgot, our group's current reserve fund is not enough to reach 1 billion. At this time, Mr. Zhang suddenly stopped, looked back at Lo Jinfang, and lowered his voice. This kid is too smart. He just ate the sugar-coated bullets and kicked them back. We bought his pills. This kid refused to stop selling them. He only agreed to limit the quantity. If we get the pills in our hands, if you sell it at a high price, you will be like the demon and be scolded as a pig or a dog. As he said that, Mr. Zhang could only look at the man beside him. What do you mean, Vice President? The man whom Mr. Zhang respectfully called the deputy chief just smiled and said, don't worry, just wait until the leader comes back and let him touch this soft nail. Tomorrow I will spend a day working on it, taking a look at the dynasties and backgrounds selected for the new copy, and sorting out the plot outline. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 927. Boss, why aren't you here yet? It's already noon, why don't we go hurry up? Yeah, this guy is in the script hall, and it only takes a minute to come to the exhibition. Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai stood guard in front of the door, looking out with their necks raised. They are looking forward to the stars and the moon, but who are they looking forward to? Of course it is Mr. Tai, the shareholder of Lo Jinfang. There is a reason why the 2 of them are so anxious, because today is a big day, and the trial camp for a quarter has finally arrived. According to the agreement, it is time to start dividing the money. What's the rush? What's supposed to come will always come, and it won't be too soon. Su Tong sat on a chair, holding a large cigarette pole in one hand, smoking one after another. There were already 4 or 5 cigarette charcoal on the ground. In fact, he was also anxious. Because he has no money, after strengthening the Pure Yang sword, he only has 120,000 script points left. 120,000 script points sounds like a lot. Even before there was no industry, this money was still considered wealthy. But now, Su Tong couldn't even see this little money, it wasn't enough to strengthen him. He lent the money to Chang Wazi and the others, and now he really doesn't have a penny in his pocket. As for the money from selling 9-ox rhino elephant pill, let alone mention it. This kind of elixir is not cheap to sell at the cost price. If you throw it away for more than 10,000 yuan, there are not many people who will buy it now. Many people immediately gave up on the idea when they saw the price. This has also led to more and more 9-ox rhinoceros pills flowing out of the market, and fewer people are buying them. In fact, this is not difficult to understand. Just like domestically produced mobile phones in reality, they initially attracted a group of customers with the lowest price. Gradually, the product began to be upgraded, the price increased, and gradually fewer and fewer people bought it. But that's not to say that this thing can't be sold. After all, the efficacy of 9-ox Rhino Elephant Pill is extremely amazing. At critical moments, it can explode with extraordinary combat power, enough to make a comeback. Therefore, there are not a few people who buy it. They just want to make a quick profit in a very short period of time like Xiaodan. They can only rely on time to slowly digest it. The money collected is not small though. Even taking it outside can be considered a windfall. But when the money came into the hands of Gao Zhou and the others, they couldn't even keep it for 10 minutes. Together with the more than 100,000 script points borrowed from Su Tong, they all threw it into the fantasy cube in one go. These three guys are just like gamblers, they have already become red-eyed. Thanks to their small family background and the support of the Lojinfang industry, otherwise this team would have become a bunch of paupers long ago. But if their team is like this, let alone other teams. Even if you join the 6th Regiment and become a team affiliated with the 6th Regiment, to be honest, the item that can strengthen each member of the team to add 6 is already the limit. As for add 9, unless they are the first-line core members of the 6th Regiment, there are really not many people with such huge financial resources. What? Too expensive? You think it's expensive, but I still think it's expensive. Without adding a fraction to the cost of your enhancement, you already deserve their reputation as a conscientious merchant. Coming. At this time, Gao Zhou suddenly became energetic and saw Mr. Tai walking in the crowd. He immediately rushed to meet him with enthusiasm, just like a 50-year-old mama on the street, which made Mr. Tai feel sick all over. Comfortable. After entering the door, Mr. Tai sat down and said to Su Tong, "Sorry for being late, let's stop talking politely. If you keep being polite for a while, these three will pounce on you and bite you." Su Tong pointed to the three Changwogu people standing next to Mr. Tai, and waved to Aimei, "Sister, let's reconcile." Mr. Tai's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Aimei took out the closed ledger and began to calculate all the income for this quarter. In the first quarter of the trial operation, because taxes and fees were exempted, after paying everyone's fixed salary for me, Amoda, Fasai, and Jixiang, the total profit reached 21.67 million. Hearing this number, even Su Tong couldn't help but twitch his fingers. He knew how to make money, but he didn't expect to make so much money. As for Gao Zhou and others, after being stunned for a few seconds, they were so excited that they almost jumped up. Everyone danced as if they had won the lottery. 23 million, even Mochizuki Epiphyllum, the most profitable group of gunslingers, is far less than half of this number in a quarter. Of course, the reason why Lojinfang made so much money this quarter is partly because of the impact of Xiaodan on the market, causing most players to follow suit and buy it. It is equivalent to squeezing the profits of other pharmacies. To put it bluntly, Lojinfang has taken a heavy breath from these pharmacies. Another part of the reason is purely an accident. For example, there is a large amount of income, which is a luxury order from Mr. Zhang. Without this luxury order, this bill might not be so exciting. Not bad, better than I thought. Mr. Tai is also very satisfied with the income of Lojinfang. He invested 25% of the shares, which is 25% of the profit dividend. It is also a blood-earned income. 167 million will remain in the account as a reserve. The remaining 20 million will be divided into 5 million script points by Mr. Tai, and the other 15 million will go to the boss. If you have no objection, just sign. Aimei sent the account book to the two of them, and after they signed and confirmed it, the money in the account was immediately distributed to the two of them. 15 million script points, This amount of money is indeed a huge sum of money. But when he thought of 3 wolf cubs waiting to be fed, squatting aside and staring at him with green eyes, Su Tong couldn't bring himself to feel any joy at all, so he threw 9 million script points into the team warehouse. Save it. You won't get fat with one bite. It's 300 per person. Save some money. Don't forget that the next script will start soon. Keep some on hand. If you spend it all, I won't lend it to you anymore. After Su Tong finished speaking, the 3 wolf cubs howled, turned around and rushed into the basement to continue burning money to strengthen. He, this thing is a money-burning hole. Don't tell me about you, I almost went bankrupt when I played it before. Mr. Tai understands the mood of Gao Zhou and others at this moment. Just like when he got the fantasy Rubik's Cube. It wasn't until he realized that this thing was a terrible bottomless pit that it cost money, that he sealed it away. Yes, during that time, you were so poor that you even had to deduct our wages. Aimee brought a cup of tea and put it on the table, and started to mock again. Hey, didn't you make up for it later? Mr. Tai likes the tea made by his sister very much. He has not drunk it for a while, which makes him miss it very much. Humph, the interest hasn't been calculated yet. Aimee snorted coldly. I'm very curious as to how the thing you strengthened at that time kept getting strengthened. Isn't there a chance of failure? Mr. Tai raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this, and his eyes instantly looked at Su Tong, who was sitting nearby and smoking. She blinked her white eyelashes a few times and sneered, it's really hard for a woman to stay in college. She starts to work hard for the new boss so soon. Then you should settle the arrears of interest with us. How about we settle the accounts? Aimee picked up the abacus on the table. When Mr. Tai saw this, he quickly waved his hand. No, I'm going to pay you back for settling the score. In fact, the method is not difficult. Having said this, Mr. Tai looked at Su Tong with a bit of expectation in his eyes. Using blessing oil can offset and reduce the probability of failure, but it can only be reduced to less than 10% at most. If the level of enhancement exceeds level 13, the effect of blessing oil will be greatly reduced. At this time, you need to make a mat. The maximum if you can reach level 18, the failure rate will be 99%, and there is almost no way to lower it. At this time, it all depends on luck. Su Tong sat aside and was shocked when he heard the news. Surprisingly, Mr. Tai actually enhanced an item to level 18. When this thing is strengthened to level 18, it becomes a true artifact. How much does it cost? Taking the Pure Yang sword as an example, Su Tong made a rough calculation and found that it would cost about 260 million. 260 million. With Lo Jinfang's current earning power, even if there is a profit of 20 million every quarter, it will take at least 13 quarters to earn this money. It's almost a year. The time it took me to become a player was only a little over a year. Although players are very powerful, their real lifespan is actually very short. After all, no one can guarantee that they will come back alive in the next scenario world. Therefore, the lifespan of a player is often less than 3 years on average. And this is just the cost of strengthening. Mr. Tai also explained the blessing oil and the so-called cushion in detail, but if you think about it with your toes, this thing will not be cheap. So the real price is probably far more than 200 million. Sure enough, money is not enough no matter how much it comes. Thinking of this, Su Tong was a little shaken, wondering whether he should agree to Mr. Zhang's conditions. Of course, this is just a thought. After all, Lo Jinfang is still in the trial operation stage. After slowly opening up the enhanced capabilities, the money will only increase. For the current 200 million, Lo Jinfang will it's really not cost effective to be bound to the gun gods. Mr. Tai received the dividend and seemed to be in a good mood. After chatting with Su Tong for a few words, he mentioned that there would be a big auction tomorrow. Now that you have money, you might as well try it out. Among the props in these auctions, most of them are high-end goods. Don't go. Su Tong rolled his eyes. He wanted to break the script into two halves and use it. He had no interest in the auction that Mr. Tai mentioned. Ha, it's up to you whether you go or not. I'm leaving. I'll bring you some good things when the settlement is next quarter. Mr. Tai knew very well how Su Tong was feeling now. After all, he had exactly the same attitude as him at the beginning, and he wanted to spend all his money on it. After sending Mr. Tai away, Su Tong heard Gao Zhou's wailing screams from the basement. He couldn't help but sigh, and suddenly felt guilty as if he had opened Pandora's box. Fortunately, even if Pandora's box is really opened, all the players will follow me to enter it. Thinking of this, Su Tong suddenly felt that his conscience felt much better. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 928. After saying hello to Ame, Su Tong turned around and came to the general exhibition area. The team is not only composed of the four of them, but also has a mascot named Li Bo. Because this fat guy is not a certified player yet, he cannot enter the high-end exhibition area. Su Tong can only come here to look for him and see what this fat guy has been doing recently. How is the time passing? By the way, give him his share of the script. Now that Li Bo is already a core member, he needs a bowl of water to calm him down. It's Li Bo's welfare, he can't escape no matter what. Li Bo, where are you? After entering the low-level exhibition area, Su Tong shouted on the team channel. After a while, I heard Li Bo's response, "Boss, I opened a small shop in Heidao district. You can come over on the 13th. The overseas shopping area." Su Tong was also a little melancholy when he heard this. He hadn't been there for a long time, so he didn't rush to find Li Bo. He walked slowly to the overseas shopping area and started wandering around. He hadn't been to this place for a long time. Tong's mood also became relaxed. Take a look, it's a god-level item card, a Huanquan real estate agreement, and a Huanquan ocean view room. Advanced cooking skills book, the proficiency can reach a Grand Master, sold at a cheap price. The group owner's first-hand photos of women's clothing. Different from the quiet and comfortable atmosphere of the high-end exhibition area, there were stalls hawking along the street, dilapidated storefronts, and the bluestone road was covered with stains that had not been cleaned for a long time. Instead of feeling repelled, Su Tong liked the smell of the market very much. In other words, he felt it was more lively here. Because there is no guide spirit to lead the way, Su Tong can only find the so-called number 13 store by himself, which makes Su Tong, who is used to the guide spirit leading the way, somewhat unaccustomed. But fortunately, you can check out the props sold by these players along the way. Although most of the props are junk, there are also some excellent ones. It's a pity that Su Tong is not very interested in these prop cards now. The stronger you are and the higher you go, the less you rely on prop cards. Except for a few core props that serve as your trump card, the effects of other prop cards are greatly reduced. After all, the upper limit for prop cards is there, but not for people. Speaking of which, the fantasy Rubik's Cube exists to break the upper limit, but the price is so good that it even makes Su Tong feel painful. At this time, the crowd suddenly surged forward, and many players began to crowd the booths in front. It seemed that some top-notch props had appeared in that stall. Su Tong went over to take a look and found that there were quite a few. The most eye-catching thing is the armor. In addition to 2 passive skills that can reduce the damage caused by measurement, there are also 2 active skills, which can definitely be regarded as a top-notch item. Many people were interested and arguing with the stall owner about the price. Su Tong took a second look and felt that the thing was okay, but only okay. He was about to walk forward, but he glanced at the prop card next to him with squinted eyes and stopped immediately. It was a flag with a flying dragon embroidered on it, exuding a divine agility, as if it was about to pounce out at any moment. It looked like a master-level embroiderer. The workmanship of the great master cannot be an ordinary item. Su Tong knelt down and took another look at the flag's attributes, and it became clear immediately. Flying Dragon Flag. The charge flag in the army, formed into a set with the Earth Dragon flag and the Tianlong flag, can obtain additional attribute bonuses. Passive Skill 1, Mountain. All summoned creatures by the holder will receive 7% damage reduction. Active Skill 1, Strong Wind. It consumes 1000 script points, with the flag holder as the center, radiating all friendly summons and soldiers within 100 meters, increasing their morale by 80%, their movement speed by 10%, and their strength by 5%. If it were just an entry for this item, it would be a bit disappointing to the craftsmanship of the Great Master. But this is obviously a set of prop cards. It seems that as long as the other two flags are collected, the ability can be unlocked. From this point of view, this thing was no ordinary thing. After taking another look at the skills, Su Tong was tempted. A few of them sat in the room and discussed the world of the next script. Su Tong agreed with Gao Zhou and Chang Wuji's view that the starting point was too low. It was precisely for this reason that the teams in the previous round disguised themselves in the early stages to avoid the fiercest battlefields and reduce their losses. However, doing so would inevitably cause them to miss several opportunities to quickly improve their status through military exploits. It cannot be said that their ideas are wrong, it can only be said that their strength is insufficient. Your own team is different. You can definitely use more effective methods to push them all the way up. Especially since you still have more than 200 cavalry ghost soldiers in your hands, plus Gao Zhou's summon zombies, this flag will assist them. The effect is still extremely strong. Although the single unit's growth rate is low, the group's growth rate is wide, and it can also play a big role at critical moments. The most important thing is that Su Tong doesn't mind that this thing doesn't have a complete set and has low attributes. He can throw it into the fantasy cube when he goes back and strengthen it directly. I want this. Su Tong did not bargain, he just completed the transaction and left with the items. After walking along the street 2 more times, I finally found the so-called front room number 13. I looked up and saw that the shape of this front door was similar to that of a funeral parlor. When Su Tong walked in, he saw Li Bo enthusiastically selling a prop card. Come over and take a look, vomit. Su Tong was still familiar with this prop card. It turned out to be the leopard soul cloak he gave to Li Bo. Taking another look, this guy's shop really sells everything, including elixirs and prop cards. Some prop cards seemed to have been given to him by Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai, and many of them were not dealt with last time. Complete basic prop card. After sending away the customers at the counter, Li Bo immediately came forward with a smile on his face. What do you need, sir? There are high-quality healing medicines in the shop, as well as some rare basic skill cards. If you want to exchange things for things, I can accept that too. Faced with Li Bo's enthusiasm, Su Tong didn't know whether to cry or laugh for a moment. He raised his hand and knocked on Li Bo's forehead, and said angrily, "You gave you the elixir to sell, you really treated it as a business. Captain." After Li Bo was hit on the head by Su Tong, he suddenly came to his senses when he heard Su Tong's words again, and hurriedly pulled Su Tong inside. "Captain, you're here, don't look at my appearance. It's not big, but business has been pretty good lately. Here's the ledger. I've earned almost 20,000 script points during this period." Su Tong took it over and took a look. It was true. He couldn't help but feel angry and funny, and pointed at Li Bo. "You sold all the prop cards, what do you use them for?" Since Li Bo knew that Su Tong would come, he was naturally not afraid of Su Tong's inquiry. He directly showed his prop book to Su Tong and said with a sad face, "It's not that I'm crazy, there are too many, and my prop book can't fit in it at all. I originally wanted to rent a small warehouse, but I didn't expect this shop to be so big, so I just got rid of all the prop cards. Li Bo's explanation is actually understandable. The number of eliminated prop cards from Su Tong and the four of them, even some scattered prop cards, together is not something Li Bo can handle. What's more, there are basic martial arts prop cards that Gu Zibai has not sold out before. Li Bo can't even read the entries, let alone combine them for use. Su Tong immediately took another look at Li Bo's prop book. After careful inspection, I found that Li Bo's prop cards had a whole set of very strange combinations. The combination of natural breath and natural power gives Li Bo a great space to survive in the natural environment. Taming the wild, master of animals, favored by elves. These three prop cards allow Li Bo to easily tame beasts and raptors, and even get help from many wild animals. As for the last three prop cards, they are even more strange. For example, Tiger Power actually starts to summon tigers. Natural Breeder can easily catalyze the growth of plants. Elemental Wrath can control natural elements and use them for one's own use, greatly enhancing one's combat capabilities. Obviously Li Bo wants to join the natural school. The natural school is notoriously weak in lethality, but there are no absolutes. Don't forget that one of the 8 evil men who fought against Yan Zioqi before, Meng Changsheng, is the best in the natural school. Who? It took me a lot of effort to put together the set of prop cards. I have been shopping here every day during this period, and the bosses on the left and right who have a good relationship with me helped me put it together. When Su Tong heard Li Bo's words, he couldn't help but secretly curse that this boy was really lucky. He had a weak nature system and not many users, but it was really rare for him to be able to gather so many in such a short period of time. Fortunately, I brought this guy into the team early. This guy's shit luck is so strong that he deserves to be the team mascot. Thinking of this, Su Tong generously handed over 3 million script points directly to Li Bo. When he saw so many fractions in his account, Li Bo was almost stunned by the shock. He never dared to dream of such a huge windfall. He even pinched his thigh hard and confirmed to Su Tong again and again. After the money was really given to him, he screamed and shouted with joy. Don't spend it randomly. You don't have many places to use your money now. When you enter the high-end exhibition area, you will really start spending money. If you don't have enough money, then don't come to me to ask for it. Seeing Li Bo's ecstatic expression, Su Tong even suddenly felt as if he had reached the novice village with a full-level trumpet. After thinking for a moment, he handed the rejuvenation of the earth to Li Bo. This is a high-level prop card with a strong recovery effect. Even though Su Tong knew that this prop card did not match his attributes, he still stayed with him, which showed that he valued this prop card. But since Li Bo wants to take the natural route, this item will have higher value only when it is in his hands. Boss, give me this baby too. Li Bo stared at Su Tong lovingly. If he had been born as a girl, he would probably have even shouted out the words of his promise to marry her at this time. Su Tong stood up and patted Li Bo on the shoulder. This was recognition of Li Bo last time in the script world. He could obviously return to reality by himself, but he could accompany the team to the end, and even sounded the key at the critical moment. The sound of the bell ushered in the arrival of Josie. Even if he did not do it unintentionally, the credit is undeniable. I'm never stingy with my own people. After Su Tong finished speaking, he could not help but think of Zhang Haisheng and the pharmacist, and his eyes gradually dimmed a little. But why do some people always don't understand? Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 929. Note, I typed the chapter name wrong, but I can't change it. It's chapter 25, shame on you. Li Bo's business was actually pretty good. While Su Tong was talking to Li Bo, 3 or 4 waves of people came in intermittently. Some come to buy medicine, while others come to sell prop cards. Su Tong observed it and found that Li Bo's financial fortune has been particularly good recently. In addition, this guy is very generous in doing business, so occasionally there will be one or two repeat customers. When he saw someone selling some weapons and props, Su Tong's heart moved and he called Li Bo, if there are weapons and props in the future, if the price is right, just buy them. Once you have enough, don't sell them again, keep them all. Ah! Li Bo was stunned for a moment, not understanding why Su Tong was doing this, and scratched his head, as long as it's a weapon, just take it away. Yes, don't worry about how strong the entry is. Just accept the prop cards with a little entry and not too strong attributes. Su Tong's words became increasingly unreasonable, but he did not explain the dream Rubik's Cube to Li Bo. After all, Li Bo was not even a certified player now. Regarding the industry, Li Bo would naturally know about it after he completed the certified player. Li Bo didn't know what his captain was doing, but since the captain said so, although Li Bo was confused, he didn't ask more about the reason, because he knew what kind of virtue his captain was. Because I only saw him eating meat and never saw him being beaten. Since he wants to do this, there must be a reason for doing it, and he just needs to be obedient. After giving Li Bo's instructions, Su Tong immediately felt much happier. He looked at the new players outside the door who were still in the overseas shopping area, walking around and selecting props. It's good stuff, you have to learn to share it. Then he came to the previous bar. Su Tong glanced at the seat where he had been sitting before. When he saw someone was already sitting there, he could only turn around and leave in disappointment. Originally, he planned to go back to Lo Jinfang directly, but as he was walking, a strong aroma of wine suddenly hit him. I am not a big drinker, but when I smelled the aroma of wine, I suddenly felt a strange feeling in my heart. When he looked up, a liquor store appeared in front of him. The name "Go to bed after 3 drinks" was clearly written on the sign of the liquor shop. From Chapter 8 of Volume 6. Hey, how did you end up here? This wine shop was the place where I bought the Huasheo knife. If I hadn't bought a box of Huasheo knife here, I wouldn't have been able to become acquainted with the alcoholic madman. It can be said that my pure yang power has something to do with this wine shop. Suddenly, the strange feeling in Su Tong's heart became stronger and stronger. Even though he ran straight to the wine shop, as soon as he entered the door, he saw a variety of wines on the display cabinets, such as Han Emperor Mutai, 60-year-old Nuerhong, 70-year-old Huadiao, and some others I had never heard of. Named drinks, etc. I remember that when I first came to buy Huoshao knife, I was frightened by the prices of these drinks. Now that I came back and saw the drinks on the wine cabinet with prices ranging from thousands to tens of thousands, Su Tong no longer had the same surprise as before. Feel. Sir, if you need any good wine, I have it here. The boss stepped forward with a smile. Although Su Tong hid his identity, the invisible aura on his body was different from the last time he came here. The boss could tell at a glance that this might be a big customer. Boss, when you came here last time, you bought me a drink of Huoshao knife. Can you buy me another drink? After hearing Su Tong's words, the boss thought for a while and then said in shock, "It's you." As he spoke, he took a step back and looked Su Tong up and down. Even though he couldn't see anything, the aura on his body allowed him to judge that the temperament of the man in front of him was very different from that of the young man back then. Other changes. There was a sigh in my heart for a moment. Unexpectedly, the young man who had bravely drank a full glass of wine in one gulp in order to buy a fire-burning knife, which was so spicy that he almost cried, would now suddenly change and his aura was unfathomable. Okay, sir, please come this way. The boss immediately walked to the counter, took out an unopened bottle of Huasheo knife, and carefully poured a glass for Su Tong. Little brother, times have changed. I didn't understand the wine before I drank it. Now I taste it. It has a different taste. The boss brought the drinks to Su Tong. Su Tong glanced at the glass of wine and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of foam. After all, The memory of the last drink still seemed like yesterday when he thought about it. But today he came to this place by accident, just to take a look. The thought of drinking a drink was like an obsession, lingering in his mind, as if he didn't take a sip, he would be left with great regrets. Perhaps this is my fate. Su Tong picked up the wine cup and took a deep breath, raised his head and drank in one gulp. For a moment, the spicy and hot heat surged from the tip of his tongue and went down his throat like a knife. Su Tong frowned and felt a little uncomfortable at first, but soon something surprised him. After the blazing fire knife flowed into his belly, it spread out like a deep-sea bomb. The thick and overbearing heat flow poured into his internal organs. Amid the blazing heat, there was a warm current that impacted the meridians of his limbs, making every pore of his body feel like it was open, and steam was steaming. At this time, a strong aroma of wine slowly rose from his belly. A feeling of being drunk but not drunk, of being awake but not awake, reminded Su Tong of the faces of many people, such as Zhang Haisheng, Yao Shi, Yang Zixuan, Dong Xian Taoist, and Archbishop Antu, Yang Guanjin, Qian Shao, Lu Ji, Drunk Madman, etc. Every face floated in front of him like a screen, and Su Tong's thoughts became purer and purer. Never mind it, the river will go eastward, the waves will be gone, the new generation will be better than the old ones, this is a toast to you, but from now on, you will just be the dust of the past in my memory. Su Tong's thoughts were fulfilled, and he even began to turn into a crystal state, completely transparent and pure. I don't know how long it took for me to do this. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my boss looking up at me. Do you understand, sir? Although the boss knew that the young man in front of him was no longer what he used to be. He was no longer the stupid boy who would run out to vomit after having a drink. But when he saw Su Tong motionless for a long time, as if he had been put under a restraining spell, he realized that the other party actually tasted the taste of this glass of wine. Su Tong did not answer the boss's words, but just said, "The tea cakes are fragrant when chewed, and there are thousands of words in the cup of wine." This sentence was originally said to him by his boss. Now Su Tong returns the sentence to his boss, which is better than 1,000 words of explanation. A glass of wine reveals your temperament. I'm not going to lie to you, drinking a glass of wine will sweep away the gloom in my heart, making my thoughts clearer, and even the pure yang energy in my body will become more refined. Okay. The boss grinned, took out 2 boxes of fire knives from under the cabinet and placed them on the table. This is the only amount of wine left. Take it and I'll give it all to you. Thank you. Su Tong did not show any pretense and directly accepted the 2 boxes of wine. As a return gift, Su Tong took out a jar of Meiji a century-old wine and gave it to the boss. Although this wine cannot be compared with Huo Shao knife, it still has a unique taste. Coupled with the plum blossom mark on it, the boss calls it a bloody profit. After walking out of the liquor store, Su Tong had a second thought. Since he had bought the Huashao knife, he might as well go to Shuiji grocery store to have a look. When I bought the Huashao knife, I wanted to go to Shuiji grocery store to find Hansenbei to figure out the whereabouts of Yang Zixuan, and learn skills at the same time. Hansenbei gave me a copy of Plum Blossom Yishu, but it turned out that I didn't know how to learn Yishu. After cultivating the door, he was befriended by a drunken madman by accident, and acquired the power of pure yang. Now that you are here, you might as well go and have a look, maybe you will get something unexpected. Thinking of this, Su Tong quickened his pace. It's still that small, dilapidated house. If it weren't for the dilapidated sign, no one would have thought that this place was actually a grocery store. Pushing open the door and entering, Su Tong immediately noticed several obscure glances in the room looking at him. Although this place is a grocery store, there is not even a counter when you enter. There are only 4 or 5 tables with a few people sitting there chatting. Su Tong randomly found a table and sat down. He glanced around. After not seeing Hansenbei, a drunkard, he turned his eyes and saw an old man sitting by the stove. The old man was holding a slender cigarette rod in his hand and was smoking with squinted eyes, looking indifferent to others. Seeing this, Su Tong stood up and walked to the old man, took out his hookah pipe, skillfully patted the cut tobacco, carbonized the cut tobacco with the red-hot iron wire beside the stove, took 2 slow and gentle puffs, and waited. The water in the hookah pipe began to slowly warm up, and then I took a deep breath. The smoke lingered between my lips and teeth. The warm smoke emitted a unique fragrance in my mouth. The old man didn't care who was around him at first, but when he smelled the green smoke, he opened his eyes and became energetic. When he raised his head and looked at the hookah pipe in Su Tong's hand, he suddenly felt familiar. For a moment then I remembered that I seemed to have seen this person before. "Old man, long time no see. How are you?" Su Tong didn't wait for the old man to speak, then handed over his tobacco. The last time he came to see Hansen Bey, it was this old man who gave him guidance. Today, Hansen Bey didn't come, so he simply sat down and chatted with the old man. "Hey, it's your kid." The old man took the cut tobacco and took a look at it with a smile. "Okay, this cut tobacco is good. It is golden in color, moist but not wet. At first glance, it is the best choice. I couldn't wait to pinch out a ball and stuff it into my smoking pot." Unlike water pipes, dry tobacco does not need to be heated. It can be smoked by lighting it. Only after the old man took 2 puffs did a look of comfort appear on his face. "Young man, I haven't seen you for a long time. When we meet again, you have already achieved such a level of cultivation. It's really amazing." After saying this, the old man seemed to have remembered something, and suddenly let out a mute laugh. Seeing that he was laughing, Su Tong asked, "Why is the old gentleman laughing?" "Ha ha ha, I laugh at Zenbei. This Jumenzi said yesterday that he wouldn't come today. I thought he had lost his mind. It turns out he was afraid of seeing you." The old man's words made Su Tong even more puzzled. "Why?" "Hey, after you left that day, Hansen Bey said that you were a prodigy of the Jinmenyi family, but who knew that you failed to learn from the Jinmenyi family, but your achievements were even more amazing." This Jumenzi was probably blushing and panicking. Hearing what the old man said, Su Tong felt ashamed. He didn't expect that Hansen Bey had such great expectations for him when he threw a copy of Plum Blossoms to him with an impatient look. But he was even more surprised that Hansen Bey had expected to come to him today. You must know that coming here is just an unintentional act, a sudden move, coupled with his earthly immortal body, and the master's black brocade robe. He still carries it, but Hansen Bey had expected that he would come a day early, which shows that he is coming here. The strength is unfathomable. Speaking of which, this is the biggest difference between the ordinary exhibition area and the high-end exhibition area. The high-end exhibition area has now become the territory of players. There are few native shops, but it is rich in resources. However, although the general exhibition area does not have so many resources, there are a large number of original shops. Most of these shops have appeared in the exhibition since its appearance. I don't know how many masters are hidden in this. The real place of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is also the place where players have chance treasures. As for why the reputation is not obvious. On the one hand, it's because these people have weird tempers. On the other hand, even if I knew what was extraordinary about Shuaji grocery store, would I still tell others so easily? I'm afraid it's too late to hide. Thinking of this, Su Tong said with some guilt, "In this case, I should apologize to Senior Han." "Hey, there's no need to be so polite. You're already a land god. You're familiar with the art of the Great Way and the Yi of Plum Blossoms. In the end, if you learn it, it may not be better than your telepathy. There are some things that you can do even if you don't learn them when you reach the realm. Zi Tong, Hansen Bey does not have that kind of blessing. It can only be said that his luck is shallow. When Su Tong heard this, he couldn't help but blush a little. The old man had revealed his intention to learn from Hansen Bei. However, these words also benefited me a lot. Little brother, there are many people who come here, but very few people actually come back. Next time you come back, bring 3 ounces of sweet-scented osmanthus cake, 3 ounces of snowflake cake, and 3 ounces of walnut cake. I have a special destiny. Give you. As he spoke, the old man put Su Tong's tobacco into his arms with a smile. This is the tobacco I repay you. Su Tong was very curious when he saw this. He didn't know what the fate of the old man was, but he remembered it in his heart. After the old man finished speaking, he took 2 puffs of the cigarette and closed his eyes as if he was about to fall asleep. Su Tong was an ignorant person. When he saw this, he stood up and said goodbye to the old man, leaving behind 2 bottles of fire before leaving. Please give the old man the knife to Hansen Bei as a way of thanking him for his kindness. After walking out of Shuiji grocery store, Su Tong set off back to Lo Jinfang. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Gao Zhou, Gu Zibai, and Chang Woge waiting for him. Don't mention it. Borrowing money is definitely not possible. Seeing the 3 wolf cubs' eyes glowing green, Su Tong spoke first to tell them to stop. Boss, lend me another million. With 1 million I can strengthen the remaining 2 prop cards to add 6. Gao Zhou came up with a stern look on his face and said. Su Tong wanted to kick him in the butt, but Gu Zibai had already kicked him. Go away, I said I won't lend money. As he said this, Gu Zibai turned to look at Su Tong. Brother, I'm only 500,000 short. You white-eyed wolf, I came first. Gao Zhou rushed forward with a curse, held down Gu Zibai's head, and pushed him aside. You asked for 1 million, who would lend it to you? You have already strengthened 4 of them, and I only strengthened 3 of them. Who told you that you only have 2 wu hooks and the strengthening fee is high? It's none of my business. While the 2 were pulling and pushing, Chang Wuhen came to Su Tong like a ghost, raised his arm and put it on Su Tong's shoulder. We have been brothers for so many years, and the price is 800,000 yuan. Even if it was 800,000 yuan back then, it's a knife's worth of compensation, so compensation doesn't count as a loan. Su Tong's mouth twitched. Hey guys, these 3 guys are crazy. Of course, I can also understand that strengthening something like this is really top-notch. If becoming stronger is happiness, then the happiness of strengthening is really great. Add 6 is already a qualitative change. Add 9 is even more terrifying, and is completely different from before strengthening. It's like one person can gain knowledge through hard study, but another person can directly turn books into bread through Doraemon's props and gain knowledge by eating them. The ease of the 2 is completely different. Kick the idiot Chang Wuzi away with 1 kick. If you don't have money, if you want money, just wait until next quarter. Head, stop it, please give me more support. Gao Zhou and the other 3 screamed and rushed forward, hugging Su Tong's thighs and started acting wildly. In the end, Su Tong had no choice but to give 500,000 to one person with a dark face. Of course, all of this money would have to be doubled next quarter. Now that the 3 of them had money, they didn't care about the next quarter, so they turned around and rushed into the basement. Su Tong covered his forehead and suddenly felt that his thoughts were not clear. Fortunately, the 3 of them took the money to strengthen their own strength after all, and were not going to eat, drink, whore or gamble, otherwise they would really be crying without tears. Su Tong even thought that Li Bo was cuter than these 3 wolf cubs. Ha ha ha, it's really fun this time. When Su Tong walked into the basement, he heard Gao Zhou's wild laughter. When he saw Su Tong, Gao Zhou immediately stepped forward and showed off his enhanced prop card to Su Tong. Don't tell me, money is really good when you spend it. After Gao Zhou received Yan Zioqi's guidance, he simply gave up on his own path of strengthening zombies and began to position himself as team assistance and group battle support. His newly replaced prop card Voodoo Head adds 6, Poison Star adds 6. These two prop cards are top-notch prop cards of the poison type. Together with Gaozhou's Corpse Explosion adds 6, they can cause area of effect poison damage. What excites Gaozhou the most is his General's Blood Blade. General's Blood Blade add 9. It is said that the broken blades of the Corpse Ancestor Generals, even if it is a broken blade, still have unpredictable power. Passive Skill 1, Corpse Evil Tiangang. The holder is protected by the Corpse Evil Tiangang. The stronger the Corpse Evil on the body, the higher the increase in the gang energy. Passive Skill 2, Corpse King. The holder obtains the aura of the Zombie King, which can inflict a 120% evil spirit bonus on the zombies under his command. Active Skill 1, Corpse Curse. It consumes 800 script points. After activation, the creatures killed by the Blood Blade will turn into armored zombies in a short time. Duration, 5 minutes. Cooling time, 7 days. Active Skill 2, Corpse Curse. Spend 3000 script points, insert the Bloody Blade into your body, explode the corpse in your body, and launch the Corpse Curse on the target. During this period, the target cannot dodge or block. After the enemy is hit by the Corpse Curse, it will cause major wounds that cannot be healed, and its own vitality will be quickly extracted to feed back to the caster. Duration, 20 minutes. Cooling time, 4 days. Active Skill 3, Corpse Demon. It consumes 1000 script points. After activation, you will transform into a zombie demon. At the moment when you advance to the zombie demon, you will extract the zombie demons from all the zombies within a range of 600 meters. The more zombies there are, the stronger the increase in all attributes you will get. Each zombie will receive different improvements depending on its level. White hair, 1%, iron armor, 3%, bronze armor, 5%, silver armor, 10%, gold armor, 15%, yaksha, 35%, boneless 100%, drought stiffness, 400%. Duration, 8 hours. Cooling time, 12 days. Note, after transforming into a corpse demon, there is a high chance that your own consciousness will go crazy, so please use it with caution. After Su Tong glanced at it, most of his unhappiness disappeared immediately. At least the money spent was quite worthwhile. Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu also came over and took out their own prop cards for Su Tong to see. Although Chang Wogu didn't have Yan Zioki's guidance, this guy already understood the route he wanted to take, so he positioned himself as a reconnaissance and assassin. After selling many useless prop cards, he purchased some assassin unique prop cards at high prices. For example, Quick Hide, Divine Thorn add 6, Assassination Secret Technique add 6 and other prop cards. Coupled with Chang Wogu's original 2 space prop cards Space Phase add 6 Space Tier add 6, it can be perfect for assassination or escape at critical moments. The Black Water Dragon Fang given to him by Su Tong was also strengthened to level 9 by him. In addition to the original armor breaking and spell breaking attributes, when 2 daggers are used at the same time, they can activate a special passive double arc scene and an active skill. Double arc scene. After activating the special passive, 2 mirror clones can emerge, and each mirror clone has 45% of its own lethality. The Silent One. It consumes 1000 script points. After activation, the target falls into a silent state, all skill release speeds are slowed down by 10 times, the skill release state is interrupted, and the releaser will suffer dizziness damage. It has to be said that Black Water Dragon Fang is indeed the top item card in the assassination system. After strengthening, the power of these 2 daggers is brought into full play. In comparison, Gu Zibai didn't strengthen much. Martial Saint and Kong Ming Fist have been strengthened to add 6 status. Those 2 frost hooks were strengthened by him to add 9. In addition to the significant improvement in attributes, he also gained an active skill Frost Sealing. Fengshuang. After activation, all attacks will be accompanied by ice attacks. After 3 consecutive hits, the target will enter the frost state and cannot use active skills. Duration, 5 seconds. Cooling time, 10 minutes. Gu Zibai didn't strengthen much because he walked the hardest route. According to Yan Zioki, the next step for him is to open up his acupuncture skills and bring his martial arts to another extreme. Even Yan Zioki was not sure to try this route and could only point out one direction to Gu Zibai. So this guy is making the slowest progress, but fortunately after strengthening, his combat effectiveness is not weak even though his force value has increased a lot. After seeing the strengthening of the 3 people, Su Tong felt a lot more comfortable. Then he walked to the Rubik's Cube and took out 2 things to strengthen. Hussar's Order and Flying Dragon Flag. If there are no accidents, these 2 items are the last 2 props they will strengthen before entering the script world this time. Su Tong took a deep breath and threw the Hussar Order into the Rubik's Cube. Ding! Do you spend 150 script points to enhance this item? Hearing the prompt, Su Tong breathed a sigh of relief. The strengthening price of items like the Hussar Order was lower than he thought. With the addition of the Hussar Order and the Flying Dragon Rider, they entered the script world this time. There will also be a powerful entourage, which is their capital to compete for hegemony in the next scenario world. He immediately took a deep breath and said, "Strengthen." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 930. I went and typed it wrong, it was chapter 26. Hussar's Order at 1. Continue to strengthen. Cavalry Order at 2. Cavalry Order at 3. Cavalry Order. The script points in the prop book were evaporating, but Su Tong didn't feel distressed at all. After all, with the pure Yang Sword Pearl in front, the enhancement of these other small objects could only be called drizzle. Within a moment, the Cavalry Order had been strengthened to add 9. Hussar's Order at 9. Special prop cards, which cost 800 script points, can forcibly upgrade an army, up to 500 in number, by 3 levels, up to a maximum of Tiger Cavalry. Reusable. Cooling time, 7 days. Su Tong then took out the Flying Dragon Rider just auctioned and threw it in for strengthening. Do you want to spend 240 script points to strengthen this item to level 1? The quality of the Flying Dragon Riders is actually much higher than that of the Hussar Riders. The Hussar's Order is only effective against cavalry, while the Flying Dragon riding is effective on all summons on one side. However, the real effect of the Flying Dragon riding will be greatly improved after 3 sets are put together, but the effect of a single flag is, it seems, unsatisfactory, and even people who don't know the goods think this thing is a piece of garbage. The world in the next scenario is bound to be raging with war, and Gao Zhou's zombies alone are far from enough to cope with it. Their elite cavalry can provide great convenience at critical moments. Thinking of this, Su Tong acted without hesitation and strengthened the Flying Dragon Flag to add 9 in one breath. Seeing the Flying Dragon Flag in the Rubik's Cube that had been strengthened to add 9, Su Tong couldn't wait to pick it up and check the properties of this prop. 110,000 script points evaporated, but the price was worth it. Flying Dragon Flag add 9. The charge flag in the army, formed into a set with the Earth Dragon Flag and the Tianlong Flag, can obtain additional attribute bonuses. Passive Skill 1, Mountain. All summoned creatures of the holder will receive 25% damage reduction. Active Skill 1, Strong Wind. Spend 1000 script points, centering on the flag holder, radiating all friendly summons and soldiers within a kilometer, increasing their morale by 100%, their movement speed by 45%, their strength by 40%, and obtaining Flying Dragon Armor Blessing. Flying Dragon Armor. Enables allies to gain a layer of light and shadow armor. In the charging state, they are immune to 45% of physical and magical damage. They are also immune to stun, control, and mental attacks. They will also generate 10 times their own strength against the first enemy they encounter after charging. Impact damage. Duration, 30 minutes. Cooling time, 3 days. Active skill 2, the will to trap. After consuming 1000 script points, after activation, all allies under the blessing of Flying Dragon armor will gain Bloodthirsty, Madness and other effects. Duration, 60 minutes. Cooling time, 6 days. Note, if a friendly creature is blessed by Flying Dragon armor and the duration of Flying Dragon armor is less than 30 minutes, it will be extended to 30 minutes again. Yes, this thing, plus the cavalry order, is enough to increase the strength of the cavalry yin soldiers under my command by several levels. After Su Tong shared the strengthening effects of Flying Dragon flag and hustling order with everyone to watch, he said to everyone, "Let's go to the training ground." At present, everything that should be strengthened has been strengthened. Next, they simply went to the training ground and began to train and cooperate, formulate combat strategies, and hone their cooperation. What? Libo? Oh, this mascot doesn't need to be trained. He can't wait to cool off. Su Tong's only request for him is 2 words, don't die. I spent half a month at the training ground. A lot of things happened in the exhibition during this period, and Yanzioki's arena was upgraded again, but the conditions for getting Yanzioki's guidance became more stringent. It is said that only after 20 consecutive wins can one be qualified to challenge Yanzioki. Moreover, members of the same team can no longer compete with each other and can only apply for individual competitions. Winning or losing does not count as a winning streak. There were also casinos that had been closed for a long time and finally reopened, but the business also plummeted. After all, it was the ominous incident that happened last time when I was gambling on the tool book, and the impact was too bad. After all, in a relatively safe place like an exhibition, dozens of people could be killed and injured, which made everyone feel frightened when they think about it. For this reason, it is said that the casino specially separated the gambling prop book from the casino and set up a separate prop book recycling company. But even if you do this, business is still not good. Since Lo Jinfang began to restrict the purchase of Zhe Zhao Dan, the prices in other pharmacies have also begun to stabilize. But after the turmoil ended, people soon discovered that the prices of other pharmacies had skyrocketed a lot, and every one of them was the same, as if they were all agreed upon, which made many players scolded them, but they were helpless. All of this is naturally thanks to the Pharmaceutical Industry Union. Zhang Lao has single-handedly controlled the pricing power of the Pharmaceutical Industry Union. All drug prices in pharmacies must be appraised and reported by the Pharmaceutical Industry Union. Corresponding prices are given according to different grades. It seems that the market has been stabilized, but Mr. Zhang has already made a lot of money. Every pill has to pay a pricing fee. Although the price is not expensive, it is a costless transaction in itself. As for the 200 million in funds he brought into the union, Mr. Zhang has long since transferred them back to the Gunsling Group, and the union has even begun to make a profit during this period. Just that is not enough. With the pricing power, Zhang Lao controls the entire drug market of the exhibition. Once the Gunsling Group conflicts with other teams, he can directly carry out dimensionality reduction attacks on his industry through the labor union. For example, you could suddenly raise the price of the other party's drugstore to a level higher than the market price, or you could lower the other party's price to the lowest level, to the point where you would lose money if you sell it. The existence of the union is tantamount to strengthening the position of the gunslingers. It can be said that the benefits Zhang Lao has brought to the spear gods through this method are of strategic significance. By the time the other pharmacy owners came to their senses, all this had become a foregone conclusion. Even if they wanted to quit, when they joined the guild, Mr. Zhang's contract statement had already cut off all escape routes for them. Once they withdraw from the guild, the team behind them will no longer be able to open a pharmacy, and the losses will be even more severe. Fortunately, after Mr. Zhang set this precedent, two other unions appeared one after another. One is the Raw Materials Union and the other is the Market Union. The former controls a large number of raw material trading markets, while the latter is a market union jointly established by all shops to maintain market stability. Although it somewhat restrains Zhang Lao. Putting aside these gossips, after Su Tong and others came out of the training ground, Su Tong gave everyone a day off. He said hello to Ame and took them back to reality. The time in the exhibition is not synchronized with reality. In reality, 4 hours have passed but 1 day has passed in the exhibition. They have been at the exhibition for so long, but in reality it only lasts a few days. Following Gao Zhou back home, he enjoyed the hustle and bustle of the real world and relaxed happily. During this period, he also called Mei Du and asked about the current situation of the Mei family. All that's left is the big purchase. Gao Zhou went to the wholesale market and purchased 2 large trucks of compressed biscuits. Naturally, the prop book could not hold these things, but Su Tong and the others sent them into the space between reality and reality overnight. In fact, he was really good at pretending between reality and reality. He threw a lot of daily necessities into it, and the master even specifically asked the mountain ghost to open a hole in the back mountain. Although they don't know the background era of the script, they can't go wrong with the war. It will definitely not be a bad thing for them to gather more of these resources. After everyone regained their spirits, Gao Zhou said goodbye to his wife and father, and then the group went straight to the city and returned to the door of the script studio in the dark. Everything is ready. Su Tong turned around and glanced at Gao Zhou and the other 4. After making sure that they were fully prepared this time, he took a deep breath and waved his hand, "Let's go." With that said, he opened the door and walked into the script studio. Buzz. The door was slowly pushed open, and crisp footsteps echoed in the hall. Everyone in the hall raised their heads and looked at the figure bathed in the sun. The scarlet cloak was rolling, and a spear that seemed to be carved from crystal gave off a gleaming light in the sun. "Captain." Zhang Laoying stepped forward and looked at the man in front of him. His cloudy eyes revealed almost fanatical worship. It was not just him, but it seemed that in everyone's eyes, the figure in front of him was a god. The other party did not stop and walked straight forward. Mr. Zhang followed closely beside him, holding the account book in his hand and reporting the recent income status of the property one by one. This includes projects with large expenditures and results achieved. Although the leader would never look at these accounts, as the steward of the spear gods, Mr. Zhang reported every bill in extreme detail. The performance of Wanjiao Epiphyllum, Sangxian Pharmacy, and the refining factory have all declined recently. However, we established a pharmaceutical trade union, which has allowed us to control the market more firmly, but... When he said this, Mr. Zhang frowned slightly and took out another booklet. The new forces Lo Jinfang and Yan Zioqi's arena have begun to emerge as emerging industries. Among them, Lo Jinfang is a bit interesting. Their enhanced medicines can turn decay into magic and make huge profits in a short period of time, even better than our industry. The most important thing is that I suspect that the things that their Lo Jinfang can strengthen are not just medicines. Hearing this, the figure in front of him paused for a moment, and the people following behind also stopped in unison for a moment, and they all waited quietly with bated breath. "Have you checked it with the Heavenly Book?" The Heavenly Book requires 100 million script points and 300 crystal badges before it is willing to give the answer, so I didn't check it. There is an altar behind the gun temple, enshrining a Heavenly Book, which was the reward that the gun god received when he reached the first cooperation with the gods after becoming a god. You can check all confusions and gain insight into all wonders. Every major decision the gunslings make is in the right place because of this holy book. However, the cost of each inquiry is high, and Mr. Zhang does not dare to use the Book of Heaven rashly unless it is absolutely necessary. Check it out now. The gunslinger's voice was very serious, and it seemed that no one was allowed to have a second opinion on this matter. After all, it was 100 million in funds. Currently, the Gunslings Group's funds were still very tight, and a large amount of funds were needed to fill the hole. 100 million just to check a small thing, after all, it makes people feel a little strange. But only a few people know that the troubles of the spear gods can no longer be solved by script points. Caesar in the West has begun to prepare to attack the script world they occupy. It won't be long before Caesar's legion and the spear gods will have a big conflict. Scale war. At this time, the gunslinger had already tried his best to improve his strength. The gun god helps Yanzioki become a god, but the price is to let Yanzioki join the battle at a critical moment. The gun god can even let go of the matter of becoming a god, not to mention a mere 100 million script points. Facing the command of the gun god, Zhang Lao immediately led the people to the Bible in the back. Just waiting to get the answer, Su Tong and others were already sitting in the lobby of the script hall, waiting for the start of the new script. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 931. Get ready to start, but are you sure you want to enter this script? Mr. Tai glanced at the time and confirmed it to Su Tong again. Su Tong is not in the habit of answering other people's questions directly. He prefers to throw the questions back, so he asked, "Is there anything special?" Mr. Tai spread his hands helplessly, indicating that he could not answer directly. "I can give you a piece of advice, don't follow the script. There may be other opportunities, but if I were you, I might try to be more radical." "Hey, that's exactly what I meant." Su Tong grinned, already having a countermeasure in mind. Then the group of people followed Mr. Tai into a door. At the end of this door was a circular room with a total of 12 doors. Each door had a zodiac sign on it, corresponding to the birth date. It should have something to do with the identity they want to play. Su Tong originally wanted to do the math, but found that the 8 characters were incomplete and missing key moments. Why 12 gates? Aren't there exactly 5 people playing the roles? Gao Zhou looked at the door and asked Mr. Tai. Mr. Tai still had no comment. Seeing Mr. Tai's refusal to say anything, Gao Zhou could only shake his head and prepared to find a door and open it. As a result, Su Tong pulled him back and walked to Mr. Tai's side. "I forgot to tell you, if we die inside this time, the remaining shares of Lo Jinfang will belong to Ame." After saying this, Su Tong strode forward with a smile on his face. The face of the gentleman who came off the stage instantly darkened. When he saw Su Tong about to push the door open, he could only frown and cough lightly. Seeing this, Su Tong turned around and glanced at Mr. Tai. When he saw him looking up at the new gate on the right, Su Tong understood and said to Gao Zhou, "Go in." "Okay." Gao Zhou responded and immediately ran to Su Tong, opened the door and walked in. Mr. Tai had no choice but to turn his head again and look at the horse door on the other side. This time Su Tong didn't need to explain. With a glance, Gu Zibai stood up and entered the door happily. Next, Li Bo entered the snake gate and Wu Zhen entered the chicken gate. When it was Su Tong's turn finally, Mr. Tai looked a little troubled and turned his attention to human again and again. When Su Tong saw this, he gave a thumbs up to Mr. Tai and immediately jumped into the tiger gate. Seeing the 5 people disappearing, Mr. Tai finally couldn't help but curse secretly, "This bastard." As soon as we entered human, a fishy wind hit us. Immediately afterwards, a sound of slashing appeared in front of Su Tong's eyes, dense bows and arrows flew over his head, and his face was instantly stained red with blood. An ignited carriage roared and galloped, killing several people around him directly. Crushed to the ground. Just as he was stunned, Su Tong felt that his vision was like a person being pushed forward. There were so many people in front of him that he couldn't see clearly what was happening in front of him. A soldier slipped and fell to the ground. On the ground, he was trampled to death by the people behind him in an instant. This is the perspective of an ordinary soldier on the battlefield. Human life is worth less than grass here. Once the charge starts, everyone can only bite the bullet and rush forward with the troops. It is impossible to turn around and escape. Falling down is equal to death. There are too many people here. Ordinary people have no choice at all. Room for choice. Rumble, rumble. There was a harsh rumbling sound, and the whole earth was trembling, but the soldier didn't know what was happening. Only when the crowd in front was torn apart by a large cold crescent halberd did he see a white horse jumping into the crowd, and the horse's hooves stamped wildly. The companions around him didn't wait for you to react, and the crescent halberd had already been struck head-on. In an instant, Su Tong's vision went dark, and his consciousness began to blur. I don't know how long it took, but when a biting cold wind blew, Su Tongke opened his eyes, raised his head and saw that the night sky was filled with stars. He propped himself up, raised his head and looked around, and found himself sitting in a pit in the field. He raised his hands and looked at them. They were a pair of palms full of scars, with a few rough calluses on the palms. Gaozhou, are you there? Su Tong climbed out of the pit and asked a question in the team channel. At this time, the information about the character he played came to mind. Yang Hong, 18 years old, was born in the third year of Suankan and ranked third in the provincial examination. His family was originally wealthy and his future was bright, but life was unpredictable and things were unpredictable. In the 8th year of Suankan, the northern barbarians attacked with 120,000 troops, and the Xian dynasty was defeated. Most of the entire clan was slaughtered in one night. The emperor of the Xian dynasty was beheaded by the southern barbarians, and his head was cut off and made into a wine flask. Yang Hong fled all the way south. Because he was a refugee, he was captured and sent to Shangan Kingdom for military service. As a result, in a great battle, the vanguard army he was a part of was greedy for merit and was taken advantage of by others. The 30,000-strong army was defeated and was defeated. He was one of the soldiers who escaped. This starting point is really not that low. Su Tong curled his lips. There was a process in the script, but there were very few details. They knew the starting point was low, but only when they became the protagonist did they realize how low the starting point was. According to the laws of the heavenly stems, if a defeated soldier does not return to the main camp within 12 days, he is considered a deserter. Once the identity of the deserter is discovered, he will be beheaded and the whole family will be implicated. Although Yang Hong's whole family was almost dead, he still had military marks on his body. He raised his arm, and saw a word soldier branded on his arm. This was the mark that would be left after joining the army of the Tianjian kingdom. According to Yang Hong's memory, they have been walking here for many days, and now there are only two roads in front of them. One is to go south, find the main army, and rejoin the army, and the other is to go east and take a detour back to Qian Kingdom. But both paths are difficult to follow. The former does not mention whether they will encounter the northern barbarians. Even if they are lucky enough to return to the camp, as the defeated army, their treatment will be very different, and they may be arranged to charge. In the first echelon, to put it bluntly, they are human shields. Only by being lucky enough to survive can you truly integrate into the team. The second way, once discovered, will be beheaded on the spot. From Yang Hong's perspective, this guy has been struggling for a while. Head, we are here. At this moment, someone poked his head out from the grass and tentatively waved to him. Then I saw three more people walking out of the bushes on the other side. Nai Gao, Gaozhou, Zhao Yang, Li Bo, Guokai, Gu Zibai, Wang Dalan, Chang Wugu. 5 people came over, looked at each other, and couldn't help but sigh, why? Having entered the world of scripts so many times, this was the first time that their team was able to get together right from the start. Gao Zhou and others are potential deserters just like Yang Hong. Before anyone could say anything, the prop book prompt sounded. Identity Mission 1, return to the main force. Mission description, please return to the main force within 4 days. Mission failed, get deserter penalty. Mission successful, activate the horoscope. Side Mission 1, kill the barbarians. Mission description, kill more than 3 barbarian soldiers and 1 barbarian knight. Mission failure, no penalty. Mission successful, you will get a map. Note, the more you kill, the more military merit you get, but remember to cut off their symbolic left ear as a certificate. Side Mission 2, escape from the arrest circle. Mission description, a large number of barbarian troops are surrounding the mountain to hunt for deserters. If you cannot rush out, you may be trapped and die here. Mission failed, death. Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at the task indicated in the prop book. There was a lot of information revealed in this task. It looked like they were surrounded now. The most important thing right now is to break out. As for what to do after breaking out, that is another matter. However, the difficulty of this task does not seem to be very difficult. Why did the previous team give up and prefer to carry the identity of deserters instead of joining the army? Just when Su Tong was confused, a harsh bird song sounded in the sky. When Li Bo heard the sound, he suddenly felt excited. He raised his head and saw a white-headed falcon circling in the sky. Boss, we have been discovered. This bird is reporting news. Li Bo follows the natural path and can even understand animal language and has a great affinity for beasts and creatures. As he spoke, Li Bo tried to reach out and summon the bald falcon to fly down. But this bird was obviously well trained and ignored Li Bo's call, which made Li Bo very embarrassed. It's normal. What you are playing with is a wild one. You cannot summon this domesticated bird. Su Tong patted Li Bo on the shoulder to express encouragement. Then he flicked his finger, and a sword light shot through the air and struck the bird. However, what surprised Su Tong was that in the face of the incoming sword energy, the bald falcon actually spread its wings and whipped up a strong wind visible to the naked eye. For a moment, the strong wind hit Su Tong's sword like a hammer, making the sword suddenly unstable. Then the sharp claws opened, and the white jade claws were as hard as steel. His sword energy was shattered into pieces. Su Tong was stunned at this time. He had just snapped his fingers, but he didn't really move. He only used a small amount of force, which was enough to kill tigers and wolves, but the eagle was actually scattered with one claw. The eagle flapped its wings and made a piercing cry, as if deliberately provoking Su Tong, and circled proudly around Su Tong's head. Go to hell. Seeing that this beast was so humane, Su Tong's face suddenly turned cold. He had no energy left to strike again, so he slapped him forward, and he immediately saw 6 or 7 sword energy in front of him scattering in the air. Now the eagle didn't even have time to flap its wings before it was torn into pieces by Su Tong. Looking at the corpses scattered on the ground, Li Bo shook his head unbearably. You said you are arrogant, why are you pretending? Ah! At this time, there was a roar in the distance, and a group of big men on war horses rushed over. The strong man Yellowjange, the leader, pulled out the scimitar from his waist. His eyes were red and he stared at Su Tong. This white-feathered falcon was his beloved. The most precious treasure was actually killed. Seeing the rapidity of this line of cavalry, Su Tong glanced at Gao Zhou. Here comes the one who tests the waters, brothers, come together. Okay. Gao Zhou couldn't wait. They had been at the training ground for half a month and it was time to see the results. He saw Gao Zhou flying towards the cavalry and rushing towards them. He laughed and said, you guys, I'm surrounded. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 932. Brother Yelagin looked at the oncoming soldiers, his eyes filled with bloodshot eyes. He yelled and signaled to the soldiers behind him to slow down and let him deal with this reckless infantryman himself. He kicked the saddle with both legs, and the white horse neighed, and its speed suddenly increased several times. Wrong. At this time, Gu Zibai and Changwogu also realized that something was wrong. The aura of Brother Yelagin had changed greatly. Su Tong looked at Kimin with his life eye, and saw the energy surging on the other person's body, forming a red patch of thunderclouds. The two temples were slightly surrounded by dark red blood. It was obvious that the qi and blood circulation in the whole body had been refined to the extreme. Although the opponent was a martial artist, he had a terrifying evil spirit and was already like a Shura. Gaozhou, don't be careless, this guy is difficult to deal with. When Su Tong opened his mouth to remind him, Brother Yelagin had already swooped in front of Gaozhou, waving his scimitar in his hand. For a moment, the man and the horse became one, and the shadow of the sword seemed to be like a blue dragon and a giant tiger. I go. Gaozhou's face turned cold when he saw this. He could already feel how powerful the opponent's sword was. He immediately ignored his embarrassment and turned into the body of a yaksha. He used his wings behind him to flap backwards, and then narrowly avoided Yellow. With this stab, Brother Jin rolled on the ground in embarrassment and got up with an embarrassed look on his face. He originally wanted to pretend to be next door, but he didn't expect to be slapped in the face every minute. He immediately didn't dare to be more confident, raised his hands, and saw 12 zombies being summoned by him. These zombies were not of a high level, they only had bronze armor. They opened their sharp claws and fangs and pounced on Brother Yelagin. You dare to come here to die with sorcery and evil methods. Looking at these zombies, Brother Yelagin showed a ferocious smile on his face. He didn't take them into his eyes at all. He swung the scimitar in his hand. The light of the sword was like a downpour for a moment, spreading in all directions. Then he swept the sword across and wiped out all the zombies in front of him. Zombies cut in half. Amazing. Su Tong and Changwogu said in unison. I don't know what the origin of this person is. The artistic conception of the sword technique is not revealed, and it seems that he does not use all his strength. However, the artistic conception is extremely far-reaching, covering the 8 wastelands, operating the fortune, and his strength is no less than that of an enlightened master. At this moment, Su Tong probably knew why the previous team decisively gave up the idea of joining the main force. As soon as he entered the script, he immediately recorded his Ma'i. Everyone should carefully consider the next step. Burst. At this time, Gao Zhou had activated the corpse explosion, and 3 kinds of weird smoke, blue, purple, and red, filled the air. Brother Yelagin was caught off guard and inhaled a puff of poisonous smoke. His face changed drastically in an instant, and his internal organs seemed to be burning. It was so painful that even breathing became unbearably painful. He immediately raised his hands to seal the acupuncture points, and at the same time silently recited a mantra in his mouth. A protective aura emerged all over his body, blocking the poison 3 feet away. But how can Gao Zhou's poison be ordinary? After all, it is an enhanced skill. Poison star at 6. Poison damage increased by 45%. Attached skills, see the blood marquee, pervasive, poison star highlight. See blood and seal throat. Once poisoned, toxins will quickly flow into the body in a short period of time. Pervasive, physical power, magic, and magic cannot isolate poisonous erosion. Voodoo head add 6. Toxins are mixed. Each time a toxin is mixed, the power of the toxin increases by 15%. Attached skills, poison, quick burn, poison transformation. Curse poison. Poison comes with a special curse that can pollute the opponent's luck. Quick burn. After activation, the CD of all your own skills will be doubled after being poisoned, and part of the opponent's lifespan and physical functions will be burned every minute. Just these poisonous bonuses are already very annoying. What's more, the poison Gao Zhou smeared on these corpses was carefully developed by him and strengthened by the Rubik's Cube. They have 3 effects: weakness, lung damage, and body cold. Although the 3 poisons are not fatal immediately, they become extremely vicious after being blessed by prop cards. Suddenly, Brother Yelagin's face became more and more ugly, his lungs seemed to be burned through, and he kept coughing out blood. Even the warhorse under his crotch fell to the ground with a mournful cry and started twitching. Kill! Seeing this, the other northern barbarian soldiers finally came to their senses and charged towards Gao Zhou. Different from Brother Yelagin's solo charge, these soldiers' individual strength is far inferior to Brother Yelagin's, but when they charge together, the murderous aura, fighting spirit, blood, and masculinity on their bodies condense into an invisible aura that hits them like an overwhelming mountain. There were only a dozen or so people, but they already gave Su Tong and others an oppressive aura. I couldn't imagine what it would be like if the number of people increased to hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands. Go together. Upon seeing this, Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu immediately rushed to help. Gao Zhou immediately summoned the zombies again, and at the same time summoned the blood blade of the general. He saw the cold light flashing on the blood blade, and after a layer of strange blood light emerged, Gao Zhou jumped in front of Brother Yelujin. One stab. Brother Yelujin was poisoned, as if all the bones had been taken away from his body. He could only watch helplessly as the broken blade was inserted into his heart. As the strange red light on the blood blade flashed, Brother Yelujin's body gradually began to twitch, white hair grew on his body, and his nails began to become slender. It turned into a zombie in the blink of an eye. Active Skill 1, Corpse Curse. It consumes 800 script points. After activation, the creatures killed by the blood blade will turn into armored zombies in a short time. Brother Yelujin, who had turned into a zombie again, let out a low roar in his throat, stood up from the ground with blank eyes, and his mind was already in chaos. Ha 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 ha, okay, this is really good. Gao Zhou looked at Brother Yelujin who had turned into a zombie in front of him, his eyes flashed with gold. Although he was an armored corpse, Brother Yelujin's own strength not only did not decrease, but actually increased a lot. He raised his hand and stabbed the horse's throat with a knife. After transforming the warhorse into a zombie, the warhorse twitched a few times before standing up again from the ground. Brother Yelujin jumped on his horse and looked at Gao Zhou who was sizing him up with doubts, as if he was waiting for Gao Zhou to give an order. Gao Zhou glanced sideways and saw Gu Zibai rushing towards the cavalry behind him. The overwhelming force formed by these more than 10 cavalrymen, even some Dao-level masters would take a detour when they saw it. They are all true warriors. Not only do they have astonishing murderous aura, but they also cooperate seamlessly and charge together. At this time, he condenses his thoughts, murderous intent, and fighting spirit into an invisible force. Although it is not a powerful spell, it is the nemesis of spells in the world. This is also the reason why people in the world are unwilling to become enemies of these killing machines. However, Gu Zibai just raised his brows contemptuously. The nemesis of magic in the world had encountered such an extreme in martial arts as him. Gu Zibai took a deep breath, and you could clearly see his chest and lungs expanding, and then he spat out violently. Roar. A strong air current. There was also a powerful sound wave coming from Gu Zibai's mouth. That powerful airflow was a ball of hot white mist, like steam boiling like water. This ball of white air was the size of a water tank. It spread out violently, and Su Tong felt the violent masculine blood rolling away. Scattered. The sound of dragons and tigers echoed from all sides. The huge martial arts will was like an indestructible golden mountain, directly shaking away the momentum of the cavalry. Even their battle-experienced horses were frightened by this roar. Suddenly, the mounts of 2 unlucky guys rolled to the ground. The charge that was originally neat and uniform was now in disarray, and no longer had the momentum that had dominated the world just now. A cavalryman finally pulled the reins to control his frightened mount, but suddenly felt a chill in his throat, and a silent dagger slipped past his throat. Without the original charging momentum, Chang Liuji's shadow was like a ghost, and his light figure shuttled left and right among these war horses. The Ad-9 black water dragon fang in his hand was as terrifying as a death scythe. These barbarians didn't even understand until the moment before death that there was a slender incision on their throats. Don't kill me, leave some for me. Seeing this scene, Gao Zhou screamed anxiously. These strong northern barbarian men are good materials for making zombies. He immediately jumped on the back of Brother Yelajin's mount, pointed forward and shouted, "Come on me." Facing his former brother, Brother Yelajin didn't hesitate at all. He kicked his stirrups and rushed forward with Gao Zhou at a lightning speed. The northern barbarian cavalry were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. They didn't understand why Brother Yelajin had gone crazy and why he suddenly attacked them, but no one was destined to answer these questions. Brother Yelajin's strength itself was strong, and after turning into a zombie, it had no impact at all. On the contrary, his strength increased explosively. He swung the scimitar in his hand, creating a terrifying wind of swords, which directly knocked out the former comrades in front of him. Zhang Fei dismounted. Gao Zhou sat behind and took the opportunity to retaliate. As the horse galloped past, he wiped out the opponent's throat with a bloody blade in his hand. Li Bo stood next to Su Tong, watching the killing start to end in less than 5 minutes. He had a complicated expression for a moment. "Boss, am I holding back again?" When Su Tong heard this, he glanced at Li Bo on the shoulder and patted Li Bo on the shoulder, telling him not to worry about it. He encouraged him, "It's okay. You will become stronger after you pass the certification. Besides, this era is your home court." Li Bo got excited when he heard it. Yes, there is no other in this era, but the environment is definitely not picky. As a nature player, he can show his strongest side here. Side Mission 1, Killing the Barbarians has been completed, and you have obtained a map. Ding, you guys killed 14 elite cavalrymen of the barbarian army, including Brother Yelajin, the commander of the cavalry. We overcompleted the side mission and received an extra double reward. It will be settled when we return. Su Tong didn't feel happy when he got the prompt. In Yang Hong's memory, the army was organized into teams of 5, with 1 corps commander, 2 corps commanders, and 1 commander. Brother Yelajin's strength is not inferior to that of a master who has entered the Dao realm. Even if they charge together, they may be more powerful, but he is just a master. It seems that the masters in the script world this time are destined to be as numerous as dogs. But, it's interesting when it's difficult. Su Tong's eyes became hot. He had no intention of following the direction of the script. Looking at Gao Zhou in the distance, pointing at the 6 or 7 corpses on the ground, and the 3 Gao Zhou who were arguing with Chang Wugu, Su Tong already had something in his heart. A bolder plan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 933. Shashasha. A long knife with a gap opened the bushes, and then 2 yellow-faced heads popped out of the bushes. After taking a look around to make sure there was no one, they turned back to their companions behind them and said, "Come out, there's no one there, people." As soon as the words fell, more than 10 people were seen quietly groping out from behind. But when they looked at the stream in front of them, no one dared to move. After observing for a moment to make sure that there was really no one, someone couldn't help the hoarseness in their throats, rushed out of the woods, and rushed to the stream in 2 or 3 steps. "Bury your head in it and drink it down." Seeing this, the others couldn't help it. Even though they knew that there were probably barbarians searching for them nearby, they felt like they were going to die of thirst if they didn't drink water, so they rushed out of the bushes where they were hiding and rushed to the creek. Booze before drinking the cold, clear spring water down their throats and into their stomachs immediately made them feel as if their whole bodies were alive. Drink less, this water is too cold, don't drink so much. Seeing this, the elderly veteran Ge quickly lowered his voice to persuade. The young soldier on the side didn't care. After drinking, he washed his face with cold water and raised his head. Uncle Ge, if you don't drink now, I don't know when we will have water to drink. We haven't eaten for 3 days. Okay, can't you drink more water? Hey, what do you know? This water is too cold. We are hungry, but we have to warm our stomachs to warm the cold water. We are hurting our bodies. TCH, as long as he can survive, it doesn't matter if he hurts his stomach or not. Some soldiers said nonchalantly. Seeing this, Ge could only shake his head and sigh, it's all that idiot's fault. If it weren't for him, we would have been defeated so miserably. Everyone knows who the idiot in Ge's words is, the forward general Lu Xiaolian. In fact, the original forward general was not him. But seeing that the battle was about to be won, the superiors replaced the forward general with this scholar. General Lu, who was born. This is obviously about picking peaches. Everyone in the army was dissatisfied, but even the commander-in-chief could not do anything about it, just because General Lu was the brother-in-law of the current Qiuzu. Not to mention these cannon fodder ants, even the commander-in-chief himself would call him teacher when he saw Qiuzu. How dare the commander disobey the people that the teacher has forced in? I just didn't expect that this guy named Lu was really not a joke. He thought that after studying the art of war for a few days, he would dare to take advantage of the merits. He was protected by top experts, so he patted his butt and left, but it was a pain for them. 30,000 brothers had to use it. It's up to you to fill it with your own life. Brother Ge, stop talking, this is our life. Someone stopped Ge from complaining. Born like this, it is destined that the person named Lu is a mud crawler, but people are born with a good life. Who would have thought that a girl from the Lu family could marry the current emperor, even if she is just a concubine of the third wife, she is also a crow. Phoenix, one person attains the Tao, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. Just as everyone was complaining, a harsh sound of wind suddenly broke the tranquility. When Ge and others heard the sharp tearing sound, their expressions suddenly changed. This sharp and harsh sound is exactly the characteristic of the barbarian bone arrows. It is said that the barbarians lack iron, so the arrows are polished from bones. It is precisely because of this that the arrows have this rapid breaking sound. But by the time they realized this, it was already too late. There was a whoosh sound, and a soldier's body suddenly seemed to be hit by a truck. A black arrow penetrated his chest. At the same time, the huge force flew the person up and directly nailed him to death on the 5th floor. On a tree trunk meters away. Run! Ge screamed, turned around and ran away. The others naturally wanted to get up and run for their lives, but with their stomachs full of cold spring water, their running became much slower than before. In an instant, several arrows flew by. These soldiers who ran slowly were killed on the spot. Shooting, the blood turned the water red in an instant. A wave of scattered arrows killed most of the people on the spot, followed by barbarian soldiers with swords quickly rushing out from both sides and surrounding the remaining people. It's over, it's over. Looking at least 100 barbarian soldiers in front of them, Ge and others were already in despair. These barbarian soldiers shook the swords in their hands, with a ferocious smile on their faces, but they were not in a hurry to take action. They saw a guy covered in animal skins coming out from behind the soldiers. Judging from the posture of the other party, he should be the leader of this group of barbarian soldiers. Yesa's joking eyes glanced at the old and weak soldiers in front of him, with a sarcastic look in his eyes. If the commander hadn't asked them to capture the surrenderers as much as possible, he would have stepped forward and chopped these guys into meat and burned them, and said sternly, "The surrenderers will not kill. Surrender." The expressions of Ge Zhou and others changed, and they looked at each other for a moment, and the young soldiers felt a little relieved. "Don't think too much. If you surrender to the bandits and barbarians, you will implicate the three tribes. Do you want your fellow countrymen's descendants to follow you and be unable to hold their heads high?" Ge Zhou shouted immediately upon seeing this. "Surrendering is more terrifying than killing them. It will not only implicate the three tribes, but also make the soldiers from the same country feel embarrassed in the army." Before the Suancan kingdom was destroyed, a big incident occurred. A team surrendered to the barbarians, so that the soldiers' fellow soldiers became despised by everyone in the army. For this reason, a rebel camp was formed. Major case. As soon as Ge Zhou said these words, everyone became nervous. But Yesa's expression was already impatient. Seeing that they were still hesitating, he immediately raised his hand and was about to order these guys to be killed with knives. Suddenly his ears moved and he heard the sound of horse hooves coming from behind. The sound of horse hooves was heavy, and it didn't sound like the unique war horses of their barbarians. Yesa turned around in confusion. This mountain forest was surrounded by them. There could be no cavalry here in Shangan. Just when he was confused, he saw a group of figures in the distance riding towards them on war horses. When he saw the leader with two thick braids, Yesa recognized him at a glance as Brother Yelajin. "Hey, it's him." Seeing Brother Yelajin, Yesa raised his eyebrows slightly. Speaking of which, the surname Yelu was originally unique to the royal family, but the barbarians respected strength. Even a man from the royal family must start from the lowest level if he wants to gain credit on the battlefield. The level of soldiers began. Of course, this is what is said here, but there is also a big difference. For example, Brother Yelajin in front of me is, to put it bluntly, just a bastard. His mother is just a maid who accidentally became pregnant with the king's heir. Her mother's family has no power or background. That's why I can only serve as a commander. The king's beloved son, Yelaki, said he wanted to join the army, and he started as a center general. After receiving the news, Yelaki's mother clan directly supported 8,000 elite war cavalry, and was also responsible for the food, grass, and military pay throughout the process. This kind of treatment is not what Yelaki is. Brother Jin can compare. Just thinking about it, Yesa couldn't help but sympathize with this royal family. Just when Yesa was thinking about whether to sell the other party a favor, he saw the team of Yelojinj and others gradually speeding up. Wrong. Yesa was a centurion and was experienced in many battles. Seeing Brother Yelojin and his party suddenly start to accelerate, he immediately realized that something was wrong, and his expression immediately changed. Quick, form and formation. But it's too late. The infantry was at a disadvantage against the cavalry, not to mention that the reaction of Yesa and others was too slow. Before they could complete their formation, the cavalry had already swooped down. Gao Zhou and others had already experienced the terrifying momentum of the cavalry's swooping. At this moment, the rapid swooping was carrying a strong evil aura. Before they even got close, they felt as if their whole bodies were being cut by knives. Bump! There was a huge crash, and the barbarian warrior in front was instantly knocked into the air by the evil aura wrapped around the war horse. Before they could land, the scimitar in Brother Yelajin's hand had already been chopped down. Puff! For a moment, there was blood like rain. This cavalry of less than 10 people rushed into the crowd in an instant. It was like cutting wheat. The barbarian warriors in front fell to the ground in large pieces. I saw a silver waning moon slipping out of the scimitar in Brother Yelajin's hand. A cold light flashed in an instant. The blade was like lightning, like a meat grinder. In an instant, more than 10 barbarian warriors were killed on the spot. "You are crazy." Seeing this scene, Yes's eyes turned red and he roared angrily, but Karen turned around and ran back crazily. He would be a fool not to run. Although he has a higher rank than Brother Yelagin, his strength is far inferior to that of Brother Yelagin. What's more, infantry versus cavalry is completely seeking death. All he could do now was run back, and then report him. Even though he was a member of the royal family, he would definitely die. But Brother Yelagin seemed to have set his sights on him early. He galloped up and caught up with Yesa in an instant. He slashed his head with a knife. Sensing the coldness behind him, Yesa immediately pulled out his knife. The long sword at the waist, as soon as Baiji turned over, held the sword in both hands, slid out a half moon and collided with the scimitar. I have to say that Yesa is also a master, and this move is very beautiful. But Brother Yelagin had the combined force of men and horses, and the sword was so heavy that it struck the sword like a thunderbolt. With a sound of boom, a huge force came along the sword, causing Yesa's jaws to explode on the spot, and the sword in his hand flew out. Chance. The long sword was released, but there was a cold light in Yesa's eyes. He used his strength to turn sideways to avoid the charge of the horse, and at the same time raised his hand to reveal the hidden arrow hidden in his sleeve armor. The hidden arrow was shining with a green luster, and it looked like it had been quenched with poison. However, what Yesa never expected was that the moment he raised his arm, a scarlet blade had already been slashed out from behind Brother Yelagin. Soldier. When he saw clearly that there was a Shangan soldier sitting upside down behind Brother Yelagin, Yesa didn't even have time to dodge, and was beheaded by this sword. He may not have understood until his death why Brother Jin, if there is a rebellion, why is there a person behind Brother Jin's horse? Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 934. Seeing Yesa being executed, the other barbarian warriors instantly lost all fighting spirit and fled for their lives. Ji Zhou and others on the side didn't know what was going on, but when they saw people wearing the same robes killing Yesa, a veteran like Ji Zhou reacted instantly and raised the big knife with a gap in his hand. "Brothers, reinforcements have arrived, kill." 67 people were awakened by Ji Zhou's roar, and they immediately raised their swords and chopped down the barbarian warriors around them to the ground. In a short time, more than 100 barbarian soldiers were killed by less than 20 people, and they were all turned upside down. Before the barbarian soldiers who fled into the woods had time to take a breath, the surrounding woods suddenly began to squirm, and huge roots sprouted from the ground, like giant pythons wrapping around them and dragging them directly into the soil. Immediately after, a sneaky black shadow appeared silently. A black dagger quickly harvested the lives of these barbarian warriors. Head, these barbarian soldiers are much simpler than the previous group. It seems that not all of these barbarian warriors are elite. Gu Zibai and Su Tong stood on the tree trunk nearby. They didn't take any action. They just looked at the woods and filled in the gaps. After finding the fish that had slipped through the net, Su Tong ended them with a sword energy with a snap of his fingers. "Don't be careless, we are just trying to catch them by surprise." These barbarian warriors are average in individual strength, but if they encounter a well-trained barbarian army, once they form a formation, their strength will instantly double. While the two were talking, the massacre in front of them was over. Ji Zhou and others ran with Gao Zhou and the others. After seeing Su Tong, Ji Zhou and others were startled. For a moment, they looked at each other with strange expressions. "Brother is from Yingqiao." When Ji Zhou saw that Su Tong and the others were vaguely headed by Su Tong, he stepped forward and asked. "There are 30,000 people in the 12 camps of the forward army." Although Ji Zhou is a veteran, not everyone recognizes them, so he asked. Of course, this question was also a test, because Ji Zhou and others originally thought that a certain general was organizing men to fight back, but when they arrived, they discovered that Su Tong was wearing the same clothes as them. How could Su Tong not know Ji Zhou's little thoughts? He raised his head and glanced at the few soldiers who had survived, then frowned, and said, "I am the captain of the former Camp Zhao, Yang Hong. You are from that Yingkao of?" Ji Zhou and others were startled when they heard this, and looked back at their brothers. Seeing their blank expressions, they knew that no one recognized them. But this did not delay Ji Zhou and others from bowing to him, and they all knelt down to pay homage. Ji Zhou, the corps commander of the Shanzi battalion, pays homage to your lord. Although there are some suspicious things in Su Tong's words, for example, Captain Zhao is a 5th rank official and has light armor to wear, but Su Tong's clothes are no different from theirs. But Ji Zhou still wisely chose to submit to him immediately. As for whether he was really the captain of Zhao, that was another matter. Moreover, at least this Master Yang has an aura of unruffled official authority that is stronger than the general at Yingkao. Even if he is not a captain, he is still an extraordinary person. Just kidding, Su Tong has held many official positions. It would be a shame if he couldn't control his aura. Seeing that Ji Zhou was so understanding, Su Tong couldn't help but look at the corps commander, nodded and said, "Get up, we have been confused in this battle. The most important thing now is to gather the scattered brothers as soon as possible. Do you know what's nearby? Are there any other brothers?" I know, there are some of our brothers in the cave behind, about 20 of them." Ji Zhou immediately spoke. Su Tong nodded slightly when he saw this. "Okay, you all need to change out of your clothes and grab your weapons. Let's go find these brothers first." As Su Tong spoke, he took the lead in taking off the soldiers' civilian clothes and found a piece of barbarian leather armor to put on. When Ji Zhou and others saw this, they didn't dare to talk nonsense and changed their clothes one after another. As for the corpses, they were included in the prop book by Gao Zhou. These corpses are made of high-quality materials and can become human bombs with just a little use. They are a good choice as consumables at critical moments. After everyone packed up, they didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly left the stream. "Sir, these barbarians." Looking at the few barbarian cavalry walking in front, he finally couldn't help but asked in a low voice out of curiosity. "Don't worry, they have surrendered to us. They are from our side. With them leading the way, we can have a surprise effect by pretending to be ordinary barbarians." Ji Zhou felt even more strange when he heard Su Tong's explanation, but seeing that Su Tong spoke so confidently and calmly, he didn't ask any further. When they arrived at the place, there was an inconspicuous earth pit. Ji Zhou climbed in and called out all the other soldiers hiding inside. When these soldiers climbed out, they saw Brother Yelajin sitting on his horse. The expressions of the others suddenly changed, and they all raised their long knives. Fortunately, Ji Zhou hurriedly explained the situation and introduced them to visit Su Tong. Although the soldiers were suspicious, they all knelt down one after another with the endorsement of Ji Zhou, a veteran. Looking at the 20 or so people in front of him, Su Tong immediately asked Li Bo to take out some compressed biscuits and distribute them to these soldiers. Although the biscuits didn't taste very good, they were simply a delicacy to the soldiers who had been hungry for several days. After eating and drinking, the soldiers' eyes became energetic when they looked at Su Tong again. At the end of the day, that's the saying, a mother is a woman who has breasts. At this juncture, they will listen to whoever can help them survive. As for whether Su Tong is the real captain of the school, it has nothing to do with them. "Sir, shall we break out to the south next?" Ji Zhou took advantage of everyone's break and carefully walked forward and asked. "Break out?" Su Tong raised his head, with a sinister smile on his stub-bled lips. "When did we say we were going to break out? Not breaking out." Now Ji Zhou was even more confused. Su Tong ignored him and just sat quietly on the stone and waited. After a moment, two sparrows chattered and landed on Li Bo's shoulders. After Li Bo gave some biscuit crumbs to the sparrows to eat, he said to Su Tong, "Boss, we have news. There is about a camp just under the east hillside with about 500 barbarian soldiers." Su Tong stood up and pulled out the barbarian's long knife from his waist. "Brothers, it's impossible to break out of the encirclement. The barbarians have begun to gather to the south. We are seeking death if we break out of the encirclement. If we want to survive, put on our clothes and go steal camp tonight." Hearing this, Ge Zhou and the others were dumbfounded. "Sir, are you kidding me?" Ge Zhou asked in disbelief. "The remaining defeated generals are in this state now. They have no choice but to die when they encounter more barbarians. If they go to kill the barbarians, isn't this looking for death?" After saying this, Ge Zhou instantly regretted it. Because when Su Tong's cold eyes swept over him, the fierce and cold gaze made his whole body shiver. He only heard Su Tong utter 4 words lightly: "You must resist the order." Since Su Tong had promoted himself to the rank of captain out of thin air, it was just for this moment. If Yang Hong's original identity was used, these soldiers would not submit obediently. They would be suppressed by force, but that kind of name is not justified. These soldiers couldn't gather their strength at all. Only by showing off one's official authority, playing official quarrels, and using one's status to suppress them can one truly gather these defeated soldiers into a group. With Chang Wuju as the assassin, Gao Zhou as the group attacker, Gu Zibai as the warrior, and Li Bo as the jungle master, with the blessing of such a luxurious lineup, plus they have supplies and food on hand, how can they break through? Only a fool would break out. His plan was to imitate Huo Qubing and carry out blitzes and sneak attacks. Although he could not seal the wolf away from Su, he could still disturb the northern barbarians. In Su Tong's view, this was the right way to really open up the script this time. Fighting head-on and pushing sideways all the way is the way to go. Seeing that Su Tong was about to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, Ge Zhou's scalp suddenly felt numb, and he immediately knelt on the ground. "We are willing to follow you, go through fire and water, even if we die." After saying that, Ge Zhou did not forget to turn around and shout to his brothers, "Brothers, we will be defeated when we go back. If we can't follow the adults to make contributions, how can we have the face to go back to our hometown to meet our fathers and fellow villagers?" As soon as Ge Zhou said this, several people who were still hesitating immediately woke up. When the defeated army returns to camp, according to unspoken rules, they will be placed in the front row of the next charge. To put it bluntly, they will die. What's more, judging from this gentleman's posture, he didn't look like he was negotiating with them at all. If he didn't go, he would be disobeying the order. Resisting the order would be equivalent to deserting, and he would be killed on the spot. Thinking of this, they all knelt down and imitated Ge Zhou, saying their allegiance. Seeing that the goal had been achieved, Su Tong glanced at Ge Zhou meaningfully and thought to himself, "This guy is really a talent, at least he is not a fool." With the addition of more than 20 soldiers, Su Tong's team suddenly looked much better. Li Bo sat on the horse in front, following Brother Yelijin and others to clear the way in front. I saw sparrows and squirrels surrounding Li Bo from time to time along the way. This is his home field, and all the small animals in the mountains and forests can serve as his eyesight. Even if there are some deep ditches and broken valleys along the way, Li Bo can use the power of nature to control the surrounding trees to build bridges and roads. Seeing such miraculous spells, Ge Zhou and others were greatly refreshed. With such miraculous spells to help them, there was no need to worry. "Brother Ge, I don't dare. Just call me Lao Ge." Su Tong immediately laughed when he heard this. "This is different. How many years has my brother been a soldier? Did the family have a living?" Lao Ge kept saying that he didn't dare, and then said, "Your Majesty, my family has been in the military for generations. I have several acres of thin farmland at home. I can't make a living, I can only make ends meet. The so-called military status means that after the father dies, the son will succeed. This family has been serving in the military for generations. They have no chance to study or be an official. The benefits they can get are exemption from corvée, tax exemption, and so on. Of course, if he is killed in action, there will be a consolation payment. I can't say he comes from a good background, but compared to ordinary people, it's pretty good. As for the noble son of a poor family, well, Yang Hongnang can barely be regarded as a poor family. Ordinary people, haha, I'm sorry, let alone a poor family, there is no door. Ordinary people can't afford just the pen and ink to study, let alone let their children read and write. If they can support themselves, it is considered good. Ge Zhou is the best soldier in the team, and being able to survive several battles is enough to show that he has some ability. Su Tong chatted with him for a while and found that Ge Zhou could recognize a few Chinese characters and had some understanding of Tiangan, so he just casually asked a few insidious questions. Ge Zhou didn't know what exactly this gentleman wanted to ask, but he was afraid that he would make a mistake, so he would give it as much detail as possible. After a while, the two of them chatted from eating and drinking to gambling houses, and from gambling houses to J hospital. Sure enough, men's happiness has been so simple and pragmatic since ancient times. When the conversation started, Ge Zhou lowered his guard a lot and talked a lot about the customs of Tiangan, which gave Su Tong a new understanding of the world. Soon the group of them arrived at the east side of the mountain. Watching the sky getting dark and the smoke rising from the distance, Su Tong asked the group to hide behind the ridge and look at the camp at the foot of the mountain. Sir, there are so many people, Even though Ge Zhou was determined to follow this man through life and death, he still felt frightened when he saw the densely packed heads below. I'm afraid of nothing. Su Tong pulled out a piece of grass and put it in his mouth. He lay down on his side in the grass and signaled to everyone that they should eat and sleep until night. After saying that, he closed his eyes and began to relax. In fact, there are more than 500 people below, and Su Tong can kill them all by himself. No, he doesn't even need to take action himself. He only needs to summon his upgraded yin soldiers, and he can still kill the barbarians below to pieces. But Su Tong didn't want to do this. No matter how brave an individual was, he was still an individual. What he wanted was not just the heads of these barbarian warriors, but also an army that could kill and fight. Therefore, he has to fight this battle, but he also has to win. He must also make Ge Zhou and others realize that they, the defeated soldiers, can win. Only if they firmly believe that they can win can they attract more people and more fighters. Of course, it is undeniable that Su Tong enjoys playing a small role like Yang Hong, who gradually ascends to the position of general. However, the original script is too slow. What he wants is to rise to the top in one step. It was getting later and later, until it was dark, and a cool breeze blew from the mountains. Some soldiers were shivering from the cold. Fortunately, they put on barbarian leather armor. If they had changed to their original military uniforms, it would have been too late by this time. I couldn't bear the cold. Su Tong estimated that it was almost time, so he glanced at Chang Wenzhen. Chang Wenzhen nodded, and then his figure escaped into the shadows and gradually disappeared. Only then did Su Tong ask everyone to sit up. Hoo-hoo. The mountain wind was getting stronger and stronger, blowing on everyone's faces like cold sharp knives, making it almost impossible to open their eyes. Sir, look. At this moment, Ge Zhou suddenly discovered that the food and grass in the camp below suddenly ignited a fire. For a moment, the fire was raging into the sky, and the barbarian soldiers had already begun to hurriedly put out the fire. Gao Zhou. Su Tong called out to Gao Zhou, and saw that Gao Zhou had been prepared long ago. With a thought, he summoned 5 or 6 naked barbarian corpses, and then he took out a silver needle from his fingertips and pierced the foreheads of these corpses. With a pinch of his fingers, he used the Gao family's unique corpse control technique. Immediately, the corpses stood up straight from the ground. After Gao Zhou stuffed some red powder into the mouths of the corpses, Gao Zhou pointed with his hand, up. Immediately, these corpses rushed straight down the mountain under the shocked eyes of Ge Zhou and others. Who is it? The barbarian soldiers who were on guard saw 5 or 6 naked guys rushing over from a distance, and immediately shouted loudly. Seeing no response, he immediately bent his bow and shot out an arrow. The arrow made a unique sound of breaking the wind, and hit the throat of a corpse directly. However, these corpses were already dead, and they ran even faster in the face of the fatal blow. The barbarian camps look like animal skin yurts, with no fences left at all. After all, this is their territory. 5 or 6 corpses rushed forward almost fearlessly, rushing directly into the depths of the camp. Burst. The corpse exploded in an instant, and some barbarian warriors didn't even have time to dodge before being hit with holes all over their bodies by the exploded bones. Immediately after the vermilion smoke floated up, the moment they came into contact with the poisonous smoke, a strange itching quickly spread throughout their bodies, and their tough skin began to ulcerate over large areas. Seeing the chaos below, Su Tong stood up and waved the long knife in his hand. Brothers, the time has come to make contributions, come to me. The moment he finished speaking, Gao Zhou was already riding on Yellow Jin's horse, controlling the group of cavalry to rush down the mountain quickly. There were obviously less than 10 cavalry, but during the charge, the aura that shook the earth still made people's hearts beat faster. Upon seeing this, Ge Zhou and others immediately rushed down the mountain. To be honest, more than 20 people attacking a camp of hundreds of people were simply looking for death. What's more, Su Tong himself did not participate in the battle, but stood on the ridge behind with a knife and stared. But he was not worried about the casualties of these people at all, because Gu Zibai was also mixed in the team at this moment. For him, this was also an opportunity to understand the combat effectiveness of these defeated troops. First came the fire, then the poisonous smoke, followed by the charge of Brother Yelajin and others. When Ge Zhou and others rushed forward, the barbarian troops in front of them were already in chaos. Originally, at this time, the barbarian generals in Yingkao would immediately organize their men to surround and kill them. But until now, there was no movement. When the tent of the camp was opened and Chang Liuzhou came out carrying a bloody human head, these barbarian soldiers were completely panicked. Form up. Ge Zhou looked at the military achievements of the people running wildly in front of him, his whole face was red with excitement, but at this moment, the more he could reflect the combat qualities of a veteran, and with a loud roar, he stabilized his side at one time. More than 20 people formed a circle, crisscrossing each other and waving the swords in their hands. Puff! A barbarian warrior rushed forward. The moment he raised his sword to block, 2 other swords had already struck him. The team pushed in circles, like a gear full of blades, plunging into the barbarian camp. This is the military formation. Su Tong was condescending and watched through the kimen with his life eye. Originally, the luck of these soldiers was very scattered, but after forming a battle formation, they merged into one, like a hill. The fate of those scattered barbarian troops was shattered to pieces by the hill in an instant, forming a crushing force. Sure enough, you still can't underestimate this world. This is just a small team of more than 20 people. Facing 500 barbarians is just a small and negligible battle. You can imagine what it will be like if it reaches the real battlefield. Kill. Ge Zwajia was among the crowd, waving the blade in his hand desperately. His mind was already blank. He just followed the rhythm of the battle formation and slashed at the figure in front of him with all his strength. For a moment, hot blood splashed on his cheeks, and flowed into his mouth along the corners of his lips. Ge Zhou swallowed it as if it was water. At this time, Gu Zibai, who was caught in the middle, seemed to be infected by this strange aura. As Ge Zhou and others waved the swords in their hands, with Gu Zibai joining in, their luck became even better. It is so powerful that when viewed from a distance, it looks like a big mountain, pushing up all the way. Under the light of the fire, the light of the sword, mixed with the sound of chopping meat, everyone's eyes turned red. Even those northern barbarian warriors who were taller and stronger than them were also struck again and again. He quickly chopped down the sword and fell to the ground. Kill, kill, kill. Killing one step at a time, the bodies behind Ge Zhou and others were already covered with corpses. The blades in their hands had been cut with several thumb-sized gaps. Some people were even injured, but no one stopped, completely forgetting themselves. He gradually lost track of time while slashing and killing. I don't know how long it took, but when Ge Zhou and others realized that there was no one in front of them, they raised their heads numbly and glanced back, only to see corpses all around. Everyone around him seemed to have crawled out of a pool of blood, standing stiffly on the spot. Kill! Kill! A young boy mechanically waved the chipped sword in his hand and slashed the air in front of him, until Ge Zhou stepped forward and hugged him, shouting into his ear, "We win, we win." This shout finally woke everyone up. After gradually regaining consciousness in their empty heads, they all hugged each other and started crying. The heartbreaking cry is a release from the fear experienced during this period. Because of the commander's stupidity, their 30,000 brothers were scattered by the northern barbarian cavalry almost instantly, and then they were surrounded and killed endlessly. These deserters can only survive in the wild boar's den. Whether they break out of the encirclement or survive, what awaits them is a dark and lightless world. Even if they are lucky enough to survive, the mark of military service on their bodies is doomed to make them live like mice in this world. Whether they are discovered by officers and soldiers or reported by neighbors, they are greeted with the death penalty. Only now do they feel alive and truly alive. These northern barbarian heads are the best evidence to wash away the stains on their bodies. After a burst of carnival-like crying, Ge Zhou remembered something and looked up at the ridge above his head. Only then did he realize that Gao Zhou and the others had returned to Sutong on their horses and were watching them revel there. Seeing this, Ge Zhou's eyes turned red and he fell to the ground. "Thank you, sir." Seeing this, the other people knelt down and shouted together. Maybe they followed Sutong before to survive, but now they are shouting out their true feelings and their determination.